January the 12th, 2026, welcoming everyone to a new year and much success. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Roberson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, by Mr. Hollenshed. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
And Dr. Temple, you are voting aye as well?
Aye.
Thank you. So the motion passes unanimously. Ms. Huggins, we will turn agenda item 2A over to you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. McKinney. We're going to ask Mrs. Denny to come up to the, are you ready, Dr. Coakley? Ready, Mrs. Denny? Come on up. We're really excited tonight to have members of our student cabinet here with us and their parents. Some of their parents could attend. We served them dinner right before the board meeting started. Mrs. Denny is going to give you an overview of our work together. Mrs. Denny.
Thank you, Ms. Huggins. In the 2024-2025 school year, Superintendent Huggins relaunched the Superintendent's Student Cabinet, bringing together a dynamic group of student leaders with thoughtful perspectives and meaningful insights. The Cabinet meets quarterly and is charged with identifying issues that matter most to students and working with school administrators and peers to provide representative feedback directly to Superintendent Huggins and the senior leadership team on major district initiatives. This year, the Cabinet has identified the following topics of interest: equity in funding and resources for schools and extracurricular activities, consistency in enforcement of discipline across CCSD, composting, college and career readiness, and serving the needs of all students. Cabinet members have already met with Mr. Barowie and Mr. Hamer and Mr. Burgess to share their perspectives on composting across the district, and they participated in a hands-on exercise with Dr. Coakley designed to deepen their understanding of the student discipline process and how discipline decisions are made. We'd like to recognize the cabinet members for their dedication and service to CCSD. We're going to have them come on in now. So I'm going to shimmy around and you'll see me in the front in just a second.
So clearly, not every student cabinet member can make it this evening, and we understand that you all have very busy schedules. So we're glad that you made time for us. But as Ms. Denny suggested, we could have up to two student cabinet members from every middle and high school across Charleston County School District. And this is why we do this work. If you're watching online or if you're here in this boardroom and you've never had the blessing of attending a board meeting with us before, this represents why all of us got into education, and it's the voice of students. And it's these voices that make our work so powerful. So as we enter the second semester, this group of young men and women will help guide some of our budget decisions. And I know our cabinet members join me in thanking them. So we're going to stand and give you all another round of applause, and our trustees behind you are going to join us for a photo, okay? So let's see if it comes up. And wasn't going to be ever like the bees if they're this young. Squeak in, my father, let me demonstrate this way, this way. Yes, all right. And so in our meetings, we talk a lot about board members and the role of boards and the governance role of board members. And so students, if you look to your right at the end and your left at the end and the people behind you, those are the people that are elected to represent you and your parents and the taxpayers of Charleston County. So everybody smile, you're gonna look at my friends here and all your parents. That's the most important. And forever, proud parents, everybody smile on three. I'm gonna step out. 1, 2, 3. Okay, on 3 say CCSD. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. CCSD. So parents, thank you so much. I understand there's a game tonight, so I know several of you might want to exit stage left, but if you like to stay, we'll be here for a while. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in just a few weeks, okay? All right, you can exit this way and get some snacks off the snack cart. They know the snack cart, okay?
Yeah. Talk to you, you meet with, finance department, talk about the integration for credit card processing.
Touch meeting on Wednesday,
Okay.
or on Wednesday.
Keep it posted. I'm gonna say it all out.
We're excited.
Yes.
Let's go see all.
Well, you got a certified one too.
They want to know we got.
Shows it. City. Jesus. Really? Ooh.
Hey. Keith serving up the letter. I thought, you thought it was you serving up the letter. That's a joke.
Uh-huh. Wow, that's pretty cool. And now it's gonna take credit cards. Even if you build a connector, they'll be able to.
Put it like a dog cute. Nobody knows. Okay, now, but you know you can serve them with some. But it is like. It's They did that to the- They figured that.
So the next
What it was.
The next recognition that we'd like to share publicly tonight is the honor for our school board for School Board Recognition Month. And I want to thank you trustees, and I know colleagues seated beside me and behind me and those represented in our classroom want to thank you for supporting the work in Charleston County School District so faithfully. We certainly don't always see eye to eye. That's simply not possible when you have people with different opinions and diverse experiences. But when it comes time to vote, you vote with kids in mind, and we are really, really grateful for that. And so January, as you know, is School Board Recognition Month. And for us, it really comes every month because we know the work that you do is tireless, and you certainly don't get compensated adequately for it. So from the governor, in honor of School Board Recognition Month, whereas education is the foundation upon which the economic, intellectual, and social capital of our state is built, and school boards directly influence instruction in South Carolina's schools. And the decisions of boards affect the present and future lives of children while setting the direction to prepare students to be competitive in a local, state, national, and global 21st century knowledge economy. And local school board members work with parents, businesses, education professionals, and other community members to represent their views and create the ideal educational vision for their schools and students. And whereas School Board Recognition Month highlights the unique role boards play in representing their constituents by promoting quality public education, I, Henry McMaster, Governor of this great state, hereby proclaim January 2026 as School Board Recognition Month throughout the great state of South Carolina in order to recognize the contributions of school boards to the success of our children. I paraphrased a little bit, but that's what it said in essence. So thank you, school board, for the work that you do for us. Please do stand, be recognized, and let us give you the thanks that you deserve. And please come up here and take a photo. Come together. Take a photo. And we know that the School Boards Association puts out a poster, but we wanted to be a little bit unique in our recognition. And so some of our friends at Sanders Clyde, as you know, which has made tremendous gains, due in part to your efforts to allocate resources, signed this public proclamation thanking you for all that you do. And we certainly want to thank Dr. Temple and Mrs. Lieber and Mrs. Watley, who can't be here in person, but who we also thank for their work. Mr. Hollenshed, you might have to come over here beside Mrs. Roberson so that we're balanced. That's perfect. That's perfect. Now, don't you fall. No. Workman's comp. Smiling. Thank you very much, board members, for your commitment to our children. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Denny for our 212 award.
Thank you, Ms. Huggins. Tonight's honoree, Ms. Karina Myers, reading interventionist at Hersey Montessori. Ms. Myers was nominated by the instructional coach at Hersey, Tracy Calise. The nomination read, Karina Myers truly demonstrates the power of 1 degree through her tireless commitment to students and her incredible foresight as a reading interventionist. She is committed to students and her incredible and always 2 steps ahead, analyzing data, identifying needs, and creating thoughtful plans to ensure every child makes progress. Karina doesn't just react to challenges. She anticipates them and proactively builds solutions. Her ability to keep students engaged while addressing their individual needs is nothing short of remarkable. She turns reading intervention into an empowering experience where students feel both supported and motivated to grow. Karina's extra degree is her forward-thinking approach combined with her passion for kids. She makes sure no student falls through the cracks and that every child she works with sees themselves as a capable learner. Her dedication, preparation, and heart embody exactly what this award is meant to celebrate. I'm also pleased to report that the students of Ms. Myers' caseload, 80% of them have already met their typical growth score on the iReady assessment at this point in the year. As you know, typical growth traditionally occurs over the course of an entire year. So Ms. Myers has done that with her students in half a year, and they're well on their way to their stretch growth. Ms. Myers is proving that maintaining a laser focus on strategic, student-driven instruction can really change outcomes for kids. Ms. Myers, your students are lucky to have you serving as their interventionist. Congratulations on their success and yours. Trustees, would you please join Ms. Myers in the front of the dais for a photo? Mr. Martin from Hersey is also here. Mr. Martin's the assistant principal at Hersey. Thanks for joining, Mr. Martin.
Thank you.
There you go.
So our last honoree, I'm going to ask Mr. Prentice and Mrs. Carter, Ms. Carter, Jessica Caraher to go to the front. They're going to be really upset with me, but I want to make sure that the public knows that CCSD, go ahead, Mr. Prentice, get up. Ms. Caraher, come on. that CCSD has received national recognition via the Award for Excellence in Government Finance from the Government Finance Officers Association, the GFOA. Ms. Carter isn't here with us tonight. This is tied to the quality of our budget, recent advancements, and our focus on student outcomes. CCSD is one of only 6 public entities across the nation to receive this award, and I think historically, only 2 other school districts, one's far, far away from here, have received this award. This is obviously a proud moment for our entire organization and represents external national validation that our budgeting practices meet the highest standards in public finance. It affirms that our budgeting is not only accurate and compliant, but it's much more than that, Big D and Jessica. It's strategic, transparent, and aligned to student needs and long-term sustainability. And in a district as large and complex as ours, this is hard-earned and very well-deserved. So Daniel and Jessica, we are all grateful for you. I know the trustees are, and the recognition is well-deserved. So thank you for your leadership. So we'll ask our trustees to take a photo with you too, if y'all. Okay, everybody look at Ms. Mills and smile. Mr. Prentice is turning red. Hurry, hurry, he's very upset with me. I know. I do.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome, Dr. Temple. Thank you too. So with that, Ms. McKinney, we'll turn it back over to you. So Ms. McKinney, I think the superintendent's report's next, but I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, it is, and I will recognize our superintendent for her report.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. McKinney, and thank you, trustees. Tonight, my report really encompasses a mid-year update from our operational division. And I want to start by acknowledging the work of our high schools in recently being recognized as schools of distinction in regards to advanced placement. Part of that work is our effort to ensure that students are college and career ready. Now, that college and career readiness can be somewhat complex to understand by members of the general public. So we've prepared a video, Preston, here to make sure that you understand what college and career readiness is. And then we'll overview very quickly the AP award that CCSD just received in the last 2 days. Preston, thank you.
Just can't declare war. But do you know he can send?
Be college and career ready, that means you have met one of the indicators. That could be ACT scores, SAT scores, ASVAB scores. That can be enrollment in dual enrollment courses, AP courses as well, completing a work-based learning opportunity. It's all about one Wando, getting everybody on the same page. So that's our teachers letting the students know, hey, you're not college and career ready. These are the different opportunities that you have. That's the counselors when they meet with the students. They're all on the same page. That's what we need to do to get you college and career ready.
It feels good. You know, I feel like cared for, like this, like a whole community, and like we're really just like brought together like one tribe. I want to say it's really a blessing, this community. And, like all the teachers, you know, they're just here. They're here for the students. They're here for our health, our growth, our learning, and like everything we need to make it on to the next level.
We started out at 83.4%, I believe we're on that area. But we're finishing at like last year, 90.1%. So we made it a 7% gain. This year, we started out at about 85% students that are college and career ready. We're starting higher than we ended. So that gap is closing.
So with us having that 17-point increase, it was super helpful for us to see that, and also like incredible to see a lot of our kids meet those high expectations that we have for them. So us seeing that and us like really rewarding it in the fact that we want the kids to feel happy and in their pathways that they're in. So whether that's CT with the CAS or being able to do work-based learning, we want to super encourage that. And I feel like with our counselors, we have helped increase that encouragement that happens.
Yeah, pretty much I gotta be thankful for like that I got to know what CCR was when I was a sophomore, so I could start taking my course early. And I gotta say, like the staff let you know that pretty early, so you can be CCR as soon as possible, and you can have pretty much everything that you need.
I think when I first started this, I myself was asking a lot of questions of like, why is this important? Some of the kids were like, well, we don't really need it, but why do we want to get it? And I think that conversation of why it should be something that we want as for the students, and then having that conversation themselves has been honestly the most important part for me. Having them feel like, okay, I don't want to do it because I feel like I need to do it before high school. I want to do it because it's going to help me, whether that's a career or going into a four-year college or two-year college.
So one of the ways school districts and schools are assessed is by the number of students who are college and career readiness. And you know that as a system, we are at 90% of students being college and career ready. But we're being very strategic about that work. Our high school associate, Dr. Epplesheimer, Ryan Comeback, Rich Gordon, work with our principals. Ms. Roberts sits and works granularly with all of our principals to ensure they understand where they are and what they need to do to get students college and career ready. And one of those ways is AP. So Preston, we'll advance a couple slides forward. And I think Mrs. Lieber, Dr. Temple, and Mrs. Watley, or I'm not sure Ms. Watley's on. Can you see now, Mrs. Lieber?
Yes, I can see
You can
the
see it?
slides.
Okay, thank you so much. We're working on making sure you can see. One such way that students can obtain college and career readiness is to take an AP course and pass an AP exam. And we got notice on Thursday of last week that for the first time, CCSD, six of our schools versus 4 have earned national recognition by the College Board as an AP school honor roll. Those schools are Magnet, SOA, Beckham, Wando, and for the first time, West Ashley and James Island Charter. This acknowledges here, you'll see that access and opportunity has expanded in these schools, and many of our schools are using, for the first time, AP Potential in order to increase the number of students who are taking AP courses. And so we're really excited about this recognition and that more and more students are using AP in addition to dual credit to become college and or career ready, demonstrating that when they leave our system, they can be successful in the field of work, college, or military. So with that, we're going to provide some divisional updates where we are as a system going on first over the winter holiday break. Our principals said we want to open schools. We gave them the option of waiting till the end of the year because, as you know, a school transition mid-year can be somewhat chaotic. And staff has to give up, including school staff, some of their holiday to be in our schools and transitioning facilities. We opened a beautiful new Morningside Middle over the break. Mr. Hollenshed, I believe you've had the chance to visit. You want to share some of your experiences visiting?
Beautiful building. They need a fence for the soccer field.
Oh,
Our
okay.
fence.
Now, I didn't tell you you could give us another thing on our to-do list, but Mr. Broy, I saw he took note of that.
Yeah, but it's lovely school.
It's beautiful.
The artwork and the colors are very cheerful. As I can reflect on, some schools look drab, but everything around there was bright. So whoever was the architect or designer of that did an awesome job. And the principal, she's very concerned. And we had great talk, and she talked about how she's working on achieving, raising the scores and closing the achievement gap, and she's very concerned about that, and was very pleasing.
Well, thank you for that, Ms. Rollins. Thank you for being out there. I had a chance to visit on the weekend, and the smiles were just, they lifted my spirits. It's 125,000 square feet, $66 million. Achieved this through the penny sales tax. As you know, it's on the old Morningside campus. If you haven't visited and you want to, please let us know. We'll arrange a campus tour for you. What the children deserve. We're really proud of the work that we've done specifically over the break in North Charleston. And we have a close eye on the achievement of students there, and we're very pleased with the progress fall to winter under Ms. Randall's leadership. She's doing an exceptional job. In addition to that, next slide, Preston, we opened Ladson Elementary, $110,000, $70 million facility. Reports up through Mrs. Simmons. Was built on the existing Ladson campus road, also through the 1 cent sales tax. Scholars just tickled pink. We haven't seen that many community members in one setting in quite some time in one of our schools, as they hosted open house last week. So we were thrilled to open that as well. If you'd like to visit, certainly let us know. And we will soon, on the next slide, Preston, rebuild the North Charleston track and field. It's a regional facility serving all of our North Charleston area high schools. It's located right next to the North Charleston Stadium over near North Charleston High School, an 8-lane competition track you'll see there with dedicated areas for all field events. And Principal Darby is thrilled by that new school board and sound system, right, Mr. Broey? He's thrilled about it. So if you want to do just a tour of the great things happening in North Charleston, I think the mayor and Dr. Love have stopped by. Please do stop by and see the new facilities. We're excited very much so about the work that Mr. Baroe, Mr. Hamer, Mrs. Shaw lead developing our schools. On to our school accountability area. Thank you, Ms. Lever. We see that smile. And some of our deputy superintendent area. This semester, as you know, we launched an AI task force to develop guidelines and parameters around the use of AI. You've seen our policies, and we've made some revisions. Those we'll discuss some tonight. We're really pleased with the way that we've engaged all stakeholders in that task force. And Mrs. Roberts' area reporting up through Dr. Clamp is about so much more than just taking tests and school choice. School choice opened on January 7th. You'll see here that we received nearly 3,000 applicants in the first 12 hours. We're delighted that we are able to offer families options inside of the public school system, but our goal is to make sure all of our neighborhood schools are places where our kids want to go and where they can thrive. We've also worked really closely, and I want to publicly thank Mrs. Roberts for the work that she and her team do supporting families. Over 40,000 dashboards were distributed to families to make sure that they know where their students are in regards to achievement. And you'll see here that also reporting up through Mrs. Roberts is our McKinney-Vento work with Mrs. Sonia Jones. We served nearly 700 unhoused families, particularly over the holidays since Thanksgiving. And we really want to thank Ms. Jones for her leadership and that of yours, Mrs. Roberts. We also work individually with every principal in this district, making sure they understand data and making sure they understand the results of their report cards. We'll explain some of that to you tonight when we talk about our continuous improvement plans with schools and some of the recent designations that came out from the State Department. So Mrs. Roberts, thank you for your work. Preston, next slide. Expanded learning and educator effectiveness also report up through Dr. Clamp's office. Dr. Abby Woods is now leading our expanded learning efforts. My charge to her was to make our after school and before school hours more focused on literacy specifically than ever before. So in the last few months, Abby has launched after reading school spots and implemented some of the work that Mrs. Simmons' teams leads through GT Stretch and Grow. And so in our after school models, we're focused more so than ever on remediation and acceleration so that students have the opportunity to learn and grow beyond the school day. Teacher effectiveness also reports up through Dr. Clamp. We're supporting the leadership pipeline here, you'll see, and brand new teachers. We don't talk a lot about that in front of you anymore. We have less brand new teachers than ever before in this system, simply because more teachers stay than ever before. But we have a really targeted approach led by Gail Morris that supports new educators in the system. And our learning communities led by the associate superintendents behind me provide that targeted daily support to schools and principals. We met for nearly 2 hours today talking about mid-year growth and data, the 90-day plans and their revisions, and how we need to continue progress monitoring and providing support to principals. I'll also meet with a fairly large cohort of principals this Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to talk about that mid-year data and how we support principals in the growth and development of our children. Attendance and discipline also report up through the Deputy Superintendent's Office under the direction of the wonderful Dr. Shavonna Coakley. This year, she launched Be Here and Be Great, which are our attendance campaign, engaging students and staff. She also challenged our principals and our assistant principals to not only document disciplinary challenges, but also the positive things going on in our classrooms. You'll see here nearly 7,000 positive referrals in the last few months. And Dr. Coakley and her team continue to lead our community engagement events. As you know, we'll be this week at North Charleston High School tomorrow night in our North Charleston community, beginning at 5:30, engaging that work and those folks in their vision for education in North Charleston. And then we'll be back at Burke High School on Wednesday night, engaging Peninsula families and community about the challenging work there and how we make sure we're serving all of our students in an equitable fashion that advances outcomes for students. Dr. Coakley and her team, I'm really proud to say, have also restored 61 students to their home schools just in the first half of the year and have continued to support students who are on probation with one-to-one visits. And so I want to thank Dr. Coakley and her team for being focused on the positive work to restore students back to their home environments. Next slide, Preston, is mental health and literacy over in Mrs. Simmons' area. Lisa Allison is here. She and her team, with the support of Mrs. Simmons and various other stakeholders you may have seen in the news, were just awarded a $5.5 million grant over the course of typically 5 years. That's going to allow us to expand opportunity and access to high quality mental health support to our schools exponentially in the new year. Mrs. Simmons and Miss Allison have already plans for that rollout in the new year, and I want to thank her and Mrs. Simmons for their leadership. We were also recently awarded a $500,000 opioid grant to support opioid awareness, and Dr. Rush and her team have really led heroically the opening and execution of a world-class international welcome center where not only have we distributed food, but tons of support to newcomers and their families. So thank you, Dr. Rush, for your work there. And also through Ms. Simmons's shop, we're all readers, says Christy James, not just students. So you'll see here over 18 million minutes, nearly 19 minutes read in the first half of the year. It really is heroic efforts led by that team to get everyone reading, not just students. So as you read, trustees, report those minutes to us and we'll report them up through our systems. Also, supporting schools through teacher attendance and hiring down in HR. You may have seen or heard about a goal that we have that all of our staff, not just our school-based staff, but our central office staff, attends work at least 97% of the time. So far this year, it's earned us over 5,000 days more instructionally with our students and saved nearly $900,000 in the first semester, which is just tremendous. I want to thank our principals who've led this work, along with our HR staff who reports that regularly to principals and our associate superintendents. It's hiring time though, folks. In our meeting today with our associates and our principal supervisors, we rolled out a budget timeline and a timeline for hiring that will start as early as February 2nd. Mr. Brigman said, I want to close out hiring currently and open it up for the new year. So you'll see here some events. We'll invite you to some of them. Our first meet and greet this month, an annual hiring event in March, a future teacher signing day, which is one of the best days of the year, in my opinion, where we hire our own folks who are committed to coming back to Charleston and teaching, and our Pathway celebration in May. So I want to thank Mr. Brigman. I'm not really sure where he disappeared to, unless he's hiding down there. He had to step out, Dr. Clamp says, clearly, but I'll call him out when he comes back in. Mrs. Denny leads our local work. Can you believe we have 141 partners committed to local in less than a year? We celebrate the anniversary of that great partnership, linking opportunities to classroom and learners next month. I really want to thank Denny for her work. Over the holidays, we were able to pull in lots of great people who contributed to kids and families through our angel trees. And really, Mr. Broy and I were out stocking of food pantries. You may have seen our press conference over at North Charleston High School, and all of that is due to great partnerships that we've been able to form through relationships. So I want to thank Ms. Denny for her forward-thinking work there. We've had simply remarkable donations over at Cochrane, a $10,000 donation to provide backpack buddies and essentials through a great partnership with ATI. And you'll see here other ways that we partner through our McGinney-Vento program to make sure that our homeless families really have what they need, particularly over the holidays. Preston? CNI, this work reports up through my office with Jamie Costner, who is just a tremendous leader. Started in the system as a teacher and has sort of worked in a lot of different capacities. I'm really proud to say that that team of coaches has provided over 1,400 targeted visits, just not haphazard, feel good, we love you, what can we do for you visits, but targeted visits to really change outcomes for kids. Coaches have been in classrooms nearly 4,000 times in this half of the year. And again, it's just not we come to your classroom and we leave. We give you feedback and we follow up based on what we see. We also help lead data-informed conferences and instruction using a lot of different tools. You'll see lots of their fancy names, but those are really benchmarks and tools that we have to give feedback to teachers to help elevate the achievement of our students. We've also continued the great work of last year's rollout through letters, CKLA, OGAP. I think you know we hired one of the former founders of OGAP here in Charleston to really help support that work. You know, we've had to roll out geometry as part of the Pathways program led by the State Department for Mathematics. And we've provided over 75 sessions to teachers and leaders through the first semester only. We've also started recent work across the areas targeted through weighted student funding, adding here gifted and talented to align the work we lead at the district office with what we're seeing in schools. And Mr. Brigman has arrived. He came back. We shouted out some of the work you did, sir, while you were out. But I'm really proud of the cross collaboration between this Office of Instruction and our associate superintendents and our schools. It's just tremendous work. And Jamie, raise your hand. We thank you for leading it. Preston. Finance, the work there really speaks for itself. One of 6 governmental agencies. Mr. Prentice didn't know we were going to recognize him and his team tonight, but really, really proud of the turnaround work that that team has done and the national recognition they have garnered in just a very short period of time while Daniel has served our team. The budget development process started late fall, early winter. The deadline, I think, for expansion requests, Mr. Prentice reminded us all, is today. So if you're watching principals and you hadn't gotten that to your level leader, you might better do that quickly because he reminded us all that just a few hours ago. We will have budget workshops in March, April, and May, and our goal is to have the first reading of the budget April 27th with potential approval in May, pending feedback from the board. We have, as you know, launched transparency portals, interactive budget books. It's a first in Charleston, and we'll really lean into that as the fiscal year commences. Last but certainly not least, she's really a behind-the-scenes girl, but there's nothing behind the scenes about Michelle Mills and her team. Over the winter holiday break, if you're connected to social media or anything else at all, you saw these things mysteriously stop popping up on your feed. I was like, goodness gracious, there it goes. I guess Big Brother really is watching me. But we've started a neighborhood school campaign to tell our story proactively about the quality of our neighborhood schools. And the work that our principals and teachers are leading. There's nothing more disheartening at Stone Oak Park Elementary, for example, and I think we received last month several comments from teachers who said, we're launching school choice, but please see us. And this is a campaign about seeing us. It's a 2-month countywide multi-channel campaign. If you're sitting in some of our charter school parking lots, you might actually see a neighborhood school ad pop up while you're sitting there. In 2 weeks alone, the campaign has generated 3 million impressions, over 17,000 website visits, and we've already had more than 160. When we developed this over the weekend, it was 160. I think it's now up to 200 and some odd school tours, and a lot of those are west of the Ashley. one of the areas we really were targeting. So we're really proud of the work that Michelle has led, and that's really where we are as far as that neighborhood school campaign. And I know, Dr. Temple, that wherever you are right now, you're doing backflips in your hotel room as you see this, Preston. So that's all I have tonight. Again, a mid-year update as far as our divisions go. Dr. Clamp and Mrs. Roberts will soon highlight our mid-year data review. We've got a lot to celebrate mid-year, but I want to say for trustees, for the public, we still have a lot of work to do until all children are achieving on grade level and are ready to leave our system. We won't be done. So we'll highlight the work tonight, but there's still lots of opportunities. Ms. Roberts will also talk to you a little bit later about our continuous improvement plans and that work and how everything is now tied to the 90-day plan and our efforts to make sure systemically we're aligned from the superintendent's office with the superintendent's evaluation to our schools and to our classrooms. So with that, Ms. McKinney, I'll open it up to any questions you all may have for me or any of our division leaders.
Thank you very much. I don't know how there could be any questions left, but there might be.
Yes,
Ms.
ma'am.
Ms. Bailey.
I have a question.
Please, yes, ma'am, Ms. Bailey.
With the mental health grant funding, I
Yes,
know
ma'am.
we're going to use some of that money for tools and resources, but approximately how many mental health psychologists are we going to hire?
That is a great question. I'm going to let Mrs. Simmons and or Mrs. Allison tell you exactly how many are in the pipeline planned right now. Ms. Simmons?
A lot of folks do not realize that school psychologists have the ability to provide mental health supports directly to scholars. We sometimes depend on guidance and mental health therapists to do it, but we see this as an opportunity, an opening, or an entry point for our school psychologists to strengthen their skills. And so at present, the plan is for 5 additional into our existing cadre of school psychologists.
And do you have specific schools that they're going to be going to, or is it like a certain amount of schools that each one will be allocated to?
Right now, many of our school psychologists are not centrally based in terms of one school location. They have to pivot between a couple of locations. And so, Lisa, you want to speak to where they're going to be deployed?
Yes, ma'am. Lisa, let me get you a microphone. We know you love a microphone, Lisa.
Yes, ma'am. So the focus of this grant were 7 schools in North Charleston. So North Charleston High School will have its very own psychologist. Morningside will have its own psychologist. Northwoods Middle will have its own psychologist. And then we will work with the schools of North Charleston Elementary, Shakora, Dunston, and Mary Ford to make sure that they have at least 0.5 psychologists FTE for them, and hopefully more. We're hopefully going to layer on some school psych services for the schools. And having those additional school psychs, and thank you, Ms. Simmons, for pointing out the breadth of work that a school psychologist can provide to students and staff. Having those extra psychologists at those schools not only meets the intensive needs of those schools, but also helps shift the ratio across the district for our other school psychologists. Other parts of the grant are incentives for recruitment, high quality interns from around the country, and supervision and pipeline with our higher education institutions in the area. So we're really excited about not just the short-term impact, but the long-term impact for our community. Thank you.
Spoken like a true school psychologist. Ms. Allison used to serve our schools as a school psychologist. So thank you, Ms. Allen. And Ms. Bailey, I'm glad you asked that question because one area, and Ms. Bell, I'm sorry, we should have highlighted the work in special ed and we didn't because mid-year, we're opening 5 new classrooms across the district. Some are behavior support, non-special ed, and some are special ed. And that work is led by Ms. Bell and by Mrs. Simmons. And it somehow it missed the deck. But mid-year, we're opening 5 new classrooms across the district. And we're also pouring in additional therapy support with RBTs, Mrs. Bailey. So we're hiring 10 new of those mid-year, in addition to opening new classrooms because of the needs of children and the therapeutic support. I'm also going to soon be really excited to announce the launch of a new partner here in Charleston that's going to allow us to expand even more exponentially the service to children. And I'm not at liberty to disclose that yet, but it's means even more for kids. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Mel.
Yep. Ms. Roberson?
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Huggins, for that well-designed and sharing the accomplishments that we have accomplished in this last semester. I'm going to frame my questions around governance,
Sure.
oversight, and accountability. And so my first question is, it's probably finance or either HR. The savings that you receive from the reductions in substitutes, how are they going to be reinvested and where?
That's a great question. Mr. Prentice?
Yes, ma'am. So as we've talked about in the budget process, unfortunately, subs has been somewhat of an uncontrolled cost for the district over historical times when you look back in budget. So last year, we announced to the board at the end of the budget or at the end of the budget planning process that we were expecting about $4 million in sub cost over the budgeted amount that was allocated. Some of that is absorbed when subs are covering vacancies. And of course, there's budgets that are established for positions that are unfilled. But really, this is our effort to try to work within the budget for substitutes, and to be able to come to the board in FY27 with an allocated amount for substitutes that we'll be able to stick within based on the trends that we're seeing. So we've also gone to lengths this year to transparently communicate with principals the positions that are eligible to be covered with subs, and to really kind of frame substitute coverage as a wallet almost. Because sometimes there's situations where principals want to get creative, whether it be in how they allocate their PD days or how they cover positions. For example, if somebody only takes a half day and then only misses one section, of coverage, do they really want to pull an all-day sub, or do they want to, have a teacher cover one of those sections? And so we've been working with our schools to make sure that they understand the flexibility that is, enabled upon them, and also, trying to make sure that we're communicating the positions that are eligible for coverage. And therefore, this year, we expect a much less significant overrun, which we believe will be significantly tied to FMLA and vacancy coverage within the confines of the budgets that are approved for each school. So it's a little bit of an exercise in trying to increase accountability at the school level, but there will not be savings necessarily to be reinvested as a result of these savings.
Okay. Thank you. This is a return on investment question. Of the 1,500 after-school reading spots, how many students improved at least one proficiency level?
So we don't know yet. This is just launched. Dr. Woods has just taken over this. And so she's working through Dr. Clamp and Mrs. Roberts to set up measures to track that progress, but we don't know that quite yet. But we hope that by the end of the year, we'll have more data on the success of that, as we also work with our principals to determine if there are other things that will help literacy efforts more in after school and before school. As you as former educator, after school and before school can be a little bit tricky with students, but we are, again, making our focus in kaleidoscope as academically inclined as we can.
Is that something that you were thinking about tracking?
It is, yes.
Proficiency level?
Yes.
This tool also has a neat an add-on plugin that supports our multilingual learners as well.
Yes.
So it's really an engaging tool, as Ms. Huggins suggested. After school takes a lot of encouragement to continue learning literacy and reading and mathematics. So it's a very neat tool that we're excited to have offered now in this after-school program.
Ms. Roberson, we're really trying to track all our initiatives in our system, especially with WSF funding on the ROI. And quite frankly, we're really not tying them to anything but student data and output. And really that's measured just like my evaluation on student results on SC Ready. And so I don't consider success the measurement of any one system against its own performance metrics, but instead how students perform on the state test against the state standards. And so we really won't have a true ROI for that until we get student achievement levels back on SC Ready at the end of the year.
Okay.
Now, we track progress, of course, with formative assessments,
Mhm.
but the true ROI is determined by proficiency on SC Ready.
My next question is, I'm trying to figure out with the advertisement with the neighborhood schools versus school choice. Is there a conflict, or will they be bumping up against each other? We're advertising school choice, then we're advertising stay in your neighborhood school, which I am a proponent of neighborhood schools. So how is that going to flush out on the end? If parents are sending in applications to choose to go somewhere else, but we are also saying, go over here and look at your neighborhood school and consider not to go over here. So what is it going to look like? I'm trying to wrap my head around.
It's a great question, and it's really a delicate balance. What we really want to make sure parents know is that we offer quality outcomes. And so if you don't get into a school of your quote choice, you don't need to leave our system to look for a private or a charter outside of our system. What we have found anecdotally and through feedback that parents have now given us on a survey that we conducted in the fall is that a lot of parents don't go to or choose their neighborhood school simply based on perception. And so, quite frankly, for the public record, we considered bringing to the board a recommendation that before school choice waivers and transfer out options would be considered, parents would need to go visit their neighborhood school just to see what the neighborhood schools offer. And you read some of those feelings when you read public comments to you last month. When a school in West Ashley said, hey, we're here, we're doing great things. And so we're going to have to see how it fleshes out. We don't have any early indication through Mrs. Roberts' office that the applications have necessarily slowed down for school choice, but we do have more than ever before parents reaching out saying, I at least want to visit. They're reaching out to principals who said, wow, we're getting a request for these visits and we're having to figure out exactly how to balance that. So we want to send a message that we have quality outcomes for kids. And so if you want to apply for school choice, great. But if you don't get in, at least visit your neighborhood school and see what it has to offer.
I just want to stay there for a second. How is it being advertised and marketed any differently in my area?
Sure.
Because
Ms. Mills, I'm going to have whomever has the lucky mic right now. It might be Miss. Oh, go ahead. There you go.
So phase one was countywide and mostly digital. And so phase two will be starting in about 2.5 to 3 weeks. And St. John's is one of the targeted areas. So there's very targeted campaigns for the specific audience. And what they do is the company that we are using really tailors the message to the audience of what their interests are. So if they know that this group really is interested in arts or music or sports, then we would be advertising based on those school interests. Does that make sense?
how did you select what areas you were going to target? I like the fact that you selected Johns Island, but the same problem exists in Hollywood, where parents want to transfer their kids out because we don't have band, or we don't have a music program, or they want their kids to be closer to their jobs. So how do you?
Oh, I'm sorry. So forgive me. So the targeted areas, we have many targeted areas. So the first phase one campaign was countywide. And then in phase two, we're starting at all of the different districts within the county. Does that make sense? And
It's a
so
district-wide campaign,
the
Mrs.
Baptist
Robertson.
Hill area, West Ashley area, the peninsula, kind of taking the old constituent districts and targeting ads to that community.
And I guess what I'm asking, are you targeting it based on the reasons that that parents are leaving those particular areas?
some, but also targeting for the strengths that we have compared to the interests of the community. So for instance, if you're Googling arts programs in Charleston County and you're from a specific area, then we would tailor ads for those people for arts or music or whatever. So it's both.
It's a really sophisticated campaign, and we're excited to see such positive momentum with it so far. And we are hoping that it'll yield positive results.
And my last question, I promise. How are grant-funded positions sustained once the grant's expired?
Great question. Mr. Prentice?
So there's a couple of qualifiers there. Some of the grants that we receive will have non-supplant or some type of a clause that determines if we have to continue the position after the grant ends or if the position can cascade. And so we plan for those in terms of our long-range budget and also in our application documentation where it talks about matches and long-range requirements. In other situations, we monitor those things because some positions, the grant is fixed in terms of the amount of salaries and benefits that it pays for. So we know in year one, it might pay for 100%, and then in year five, it might pay for 60%. And so we have all of those baked into our system to understand year over year what the costs are going to be, and we build those into our forecast so that we come into each budget cycle prepared for those costs. But then, of course, when a grant completely expires, the evaluation process and determining the efficacy of the program and whether it's something we wish to sustain would be brought to the board as an expansion during that budget process.
Thank you.
Any other questions about the superintendent's report? Mr. Grabowski?
Going back to a lot of what Ms. Roberson.
If you'll kindly use your microphone so everyone can hear you. Thank you.
Going back to, a lot of what Ms. Roberson was talking about on this targeted marketing, are we considering marketing? Because I think one of the biggest, we have school choice. And I trying to identify a target market of school choice of our existing students. But what about the charter school students? Because it's just amazing sometimes when I talk to somebody that's got a student in a charter school and I try to explain the difference between what the charter schools offer and what we offer.
It goes to them too.
So of the 3,000 applicants that we've got, obviously we're looking from those applicants. That's helping us with, as I understand it, understanding where there's the most request to move out of a neighborhood school.
So the school choice opportunities, Mr. Grabowski, it's a good question, are really unique to students who want to leave their neighborhood school and go to one of our specialized programs in many instances, like School of the Arts, like Academic Magnet, like Military Magnet, et cetera. There are also certain programs like at Burke where students could say, well, I'm zoned for X school, but I want to go to be at the AP Academy or the Scholars Academy at Burke, which we're really excited next year will have its own Scholars Academy program with 30 designated seats. We'll make that announcement soon, but I guess I just did. So it's specialized programming that inside the district. Sometimes the board gets requests though for transfer requests out of neighborhood schools to other neighborhood schools for various reasons. The school choice is more about specialized programming or offerings that parents are really interested in. Buist, for example, et cetera.
So that kind of segues into the AP question. And, so we have 6 schools now that have been recognized on the honor roll. 4 last year, so that's growth to
Yes,
this year.
sir. It's up to, yes, sir. West Ashley is a first timer and James Island Charter is a first timer.
And what was the driving, factor?
So, Mr. Grabowski, I'm gonna be very honest. I talk about rigor a lot, and I talk about advancing outcomes a lot. Probably more than anybody beside me wants, and probably more than principals want to hear. And so principals have been encouraged to use AP Potential and to really encourage students to take rigorous course loads, including dual credit opportunities through our local institutes of higher education, including Charleston Southern, College of Charleston, the Citadel, Trident, et cetera. And so Dr. Effelsheimer and her team have really pushed rigorous AP programming. And our guidance counselors, we've talked to them about working with families so that they can understand what value AP can add to a student's experience in high school.
So it's not a question of funding.
No, sir. No, sir.
And what's Burke's AP right now?
So Burke has several AP offerings. Dr. Epplesheimer, can you rattle those off? I can say them, but I'm scared I'll.
There's AP Environmental, there's AP Human. I think there's a small group of kids that are taking AP English, and there's AP US History.
U.S. history, yeah.
Because I would think that would be a major item that you'd be putting in your targeting and trying to push kids to Burke, is that we have the ability to increase the AP potential if we had the students who were pushing for the bigger.
Absolutely. Increased student enrollment often yields that, Mr. Grabowski, and the opportunity to offer additional things.
Back to the grant, Ms. Simmons. So we've talked about a plan, and from what I'm hearing, we're going to put more psychologists into 7 schools. What did they have before?
Schools across the system all have the support and the services of a school psychologist. It just depends on the demographics of the school. So it may be 2 days a week, maybe 4 days a week. Some are 1.0 full-time all day, every day, but it's similar to some of our related arts programming, whether it's music, PE, art, they're not all full-time employees at one location. They're shared among a couple or a few schools. And so this gets us closer. This just gets us closer to serving at a high level.
So we're going to have 7 that are going to be there full-time?
No, not necessarily. That's not the way Ms. Allison described it. It will shore up. It what might increase a school from 0.5 to 0.75, or from 3 days a week to 5 days a week. It just depends on the school. So our job, our responsibility then is to ensure that depending on how many IEPs are in a building, how many 504 plans are in a building, that those scholars and that school-based community has the benefit of school psychologist support.
So I would think over the next, how many years is the grant?
5.
5 years. Over the next 5 years, we're going to be getting a lot of data that's going to be able to help you create some type of, outcome that you can define success. Because I know in the grant, you must have tackled that question. How are you going to define success?
Absolutely. And so to be approved for the grant, we had to show and validate that we have a solid plan in place to sustain the work. And so just like we had that windfall of money with ESSER, right? There were some programs that were so effective based on our impact reports that we as a system wanted to continue with it through GOF. I'm not suggesting that we'll be able to sustain this the entirety of the grant, but where it's impactful, we see it as a benefit to the schools, then we may be able to see it through long term.
See, I think this is something that it needs to be on a, biannual basis reporting back, because if this starts to show some serious success, we need to up the game, and get psychologists support in other schools.
Well, Mr. Grabowski, it's a really good point because quite frankly, when we sit down regularly with principals, one of the common things we hear is we need more help with special education, which Ms. Bell and team we're trying to put measures in place to do that in very real, actionable, quite frankly, costly ways. And another area that they continue to say they need more support is with school psychs and mental health for kids. And so inevitably, like we measure everything else, we'll measure the success of this by how well students achieve. Because in order to learn, students have to be well. I think Mrs. Allison will agree with that. So we could create some measures that we can give a survey and we can get some anecdotal feedback, but inevitably, the gold standard is to measure the success of anything we do in the system against how students achieve. And so Mrs. Allison and her team collect impeccable records, and we'll track the success of students over time who receive these support services.
Yeah, it makes my heart feel a lot better knowing that we're focusing on measurable outcomes,
Yes.
results, and not just noise, as I
Yeah.
hear so much. Thank you.
Yeah, lots of noise, but student focus is where the real deal is. Thank you,
Thank
Mr. Grabowski. Ms. Jewett, did you?
Yep. So I guess I didn't hear, how many school psychologists do we currently employ?
Lisa? 52?
52.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, so kind of following up on that with the IEPs and the 504s, I think that a lot of hesitation comes with parents going to public schools currently because they're concerned about their child's ability to be in a larger classroom with these programs and needs. And well, one, are we targeting those parents in this neighborhood school campaign at all?
You know what, Miss Jewett? I don't know that we are. And so I actually moments ago sent an email to connect you and Miss Mills so we can sit down and talk about some of these things, particularly in your constituent area. So let's talk a little bit more about that. Because I don't think that's one of the drivers behind the campaign per se.
Right, because I think parents have a misconception that they're going to be able to have more control in a private school than a
Sure.
public school. And
Well
so
taken point. Yes, ma'am.
I think that there is a validity to making sure they understand the support that they could have by being in our public school system, as opposed to going to a private school because of their child's special needs.
It's a great point, Miss Jewett. It's a
Yeah.
great point. So let's talk.
And I think that's a district-wide thing, not necessarily my
It-
district.
It is a district-wide thing, because Mrs. Bell and her team do an exceptional job, and I would put us up against any district across the nation in regards to the services that we offer. And I'm sure our partners in private industry and charter do a really strong job too, because IDEA sort of regulates, or IDEA does regulate so much of that. But I think you're right, in that parents are really well supported in the system in regards to special ed services. So we'll note that.
But in that spirit, once you're in the programs, there's a lot of really amazing support. I think one thing that we have, and this is something that I guess we can talk about in the red, yellow, green chart. I think transferring from private or getting into these programs can sometimes be very cumbersome for parents. And I think it's really important to maybe address that and try to figure out how we can do better there.
Sure.
Because
I appreciate that feedback a lot. So, so much of what we do is guided by regulation, and decisions about placement are team-driven and evidence-based. And it can be really frustrating for parents who say, I know something's going on with my kid, fix that and help us. And we try to meet parents where they are, but you're right. It can be frustrating. Those sorts of concerns have come to my desk numerous times in the last several months. So I appreciate you raising the concern here, and we'll talk a little bit more about it and figure out how we can, if there are other systems we can put in place so parents know they're seen and heard.
as far as you said the expanded learning, we implemented a gifted and talented strength and growth model. What exactly is that?
So Mrs. Simmons' team has, led by Elizabeth Updegrove and those in the gifted and talented, have piloted a couple different things, Mrs. Jewett, to
offer support for students that aren't quote classified gifted and talented to help strengthen their conceptual knowledge and how they apply certain tenets of the gifted framework. And so they've taken that and Dr. Woods has applied that to the after school. Ms. Simmons, do you want to talk a little bit about that model?
Sure. So to be state identified for gifted and talented, our scholars at grade 2, they take a test. COGAT is the test. But there are other scholars who may not necessarily meet the threshold through the test, but we recognize the talents. We see the potential and the gifts they have otherwise. And so the program is designed to intervene more or less in terms of, okay, you may not be on the roster as a gifted and talented scholar, but we want to work with you, whether your strength is mathematics, your strength may be verbal reasoning, whatever it is. The idea is that we position scholars to be successful wherever their strengths reside. And so we've seen good benefit from the program in the pilot form. I do not think Elizabeth Updegrove is behind me, but nonetheless, we've seen really good impact. Initially, Stono Park was one of the schools. We just got through talking about the benefits and the assets that our neighborhood schools have. Stono Park is one of those who've seen really solid results at this whole idea of, okay, even though we're not GT identified, here's where you can excel and thrive in the classroom setting through games, through exploration, a number of points of entry where we feel like that will get our scholars to the next level, so that if there's another opportunity at grade 4 to test into GT, we strengthen their skills in a way where they may be illuminated on the test later.
And how many schools were in the pilot?
We had about a half dozen. We are steadily getting more on board now because they're hearing from their counterparts and their peers about the success. We had a front page spread on the program at the Polson Courier a couple of weeks back. I want to say Dr. Temple wrote the superintendent about it. And so we feel like we're getting traction there, but this is just one way that we strategize to make sure that scholars have what they need, really.
GT is a preliminary, you probably heard in the state of the schools, it is an area that we will bring some focus in the budget, the FY budget planning process.
I think that is it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jewett.
Mr. Hollenshed.
One question and just a compliment to them. The Kaleidoscope program,
Yes, sir.
is that something that we're taking initiative to handle now, or that's being ran somewhere else?
We run all that through CCSD now, Mr. Hollenshed. We're really proud of what we've been able to offer across the district. And it's managed up through Dr. Clamp's office with Dr. Abby Wood. She's a former teacher and principal here in the district.
My hat goes off to you and staff and commending you in dealing with that endeavor. From a historical standpoint, I can remember going back some 8 or 9 years when we lost Kaleidoscope and it kind of went off in a different direction. And that's probably part of the reason why we have the problem that we have. But I see that you're addressing that, which is great. Just the other day, I text you and my leaders in my area began to call me all weekend and even today. And they expressed, I have no problems with some charter schools. I think everything serves a purpose depending upon where it fits into our community. But, I attended an event the other day. I texted you on, I won't call the name, was dropped in the middle of our community. And my leaders high school leaders and all began to ask questions, and how did this happen? And, they didn't talk to you. They didn't talk to any of the leaders within the area. But here's this entity within our community that will take away from our neighborhood high schools and in competition. And so one of our leaders, who you know very well, uh, makes it hard for Mr. Darby, and he does a marvelous job of what he's been explaining to me on how he's had students from various cultures coming to his school now, which
Yes,
he's
sir.
very proud of. Where this particular school that's in our area now is really, as one leader said, it's just a way to say that we don't want to support our local schools, and we want to be able to separate within our area. But it's right in the middle of our school, starting off with 400, end up with start off with 100 to end up with 400 students. But if you know the areas, Ms. McKinney, because you grew up in that area, where the students are going to come from. So again, my hat goes off to you. And that's just something I just wanted to share.
Well, thank you, Mr.
Thank
Hollenshed. And you know, that school is now at 800 students. And Mr. Darby and his team are really doing a great job there at North Charleston. Still lots of work to do. If Mr. Darby was here right now, he'd say, Anita, we're not where we want to be. And none of us are saying that we are. But our job and our goal is to make every school in this district high performing. So any parent won't think twice about sending his or her child to that school. So I appreciate your comments. Know that we're working hard. Our charter partners, we love them. They've got our kids. We've got some here in the audience. Well, they're not charters, but some of our private partnership folks here in the audience today to just hear the presentation, hear our mid-year updates, and we're thankful for partnerships because they're serving our kids. But it doesn't change our goal, which is to make every school high performing. So thank you for those comments.
So I cannot tell from the screen if Ms. Lieber and Dr. Temple are on. They are. Ms. Temple or Ms. Lieber, do you have questions about the superintendent's report?
No,
All I want to do is
Thank
say
you.
that 2026, I put on rose glasses because I was just hooting and hollering the whole time when that report was going through. And I'm honored that my peers had some questions, but I thought it was wonderful, and I appreciate my peers and their detailed questions. It's helped me inform me a lot.
Thank you, Ms. Lieber. Thank you for the support. We appreciate your commitment to the kids in your area, or all kids.
I don't have any questions. The questions that were asked were very thorough, and I'm excited about the report. And I hope you kept seeing my thumbs up and hearts.
We did, and your smiles. Thank you
Yes.
so much for that encouragement, Dr. Temple. We appreciate it a lot. Thank you, Ms. McKinney.
Certainly. We appreciate all of the work that went into that report.
Yes, ma'am.
We will move on to strategic education. Item 4A, the continuous improvement plan. Is there a motion to advance to the January 26th, 2026 board meeting for consideration to approve all proposed continuous improvement plans for the school year 2026, 2027?
I motion.
Ms. Lieber moves. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Ms. Bailey. We will now ask for the district presentation, and then we can see if there are any questions left and take a vote.
Thank you, Mrs. McKinney. We have our associate here for accountability and our executive director, Mrs. Solange Brewer, who will go over these things. And I see Mr. Kiefer's here with us too, so I'm going to turn it over to you, friends.
So thank you so much for allowing us the time to talk a little bit about our South Carolina underperforming school designations. The presentation tonight will provide you information about our 2025 South Carolina report card underperforming school designations and actually bring forward our continuous improvement plans that have been prepared by our identified school. And that is, of course, for board approval. So this step will actually ensure that we remain compliant with our state requirements, that we are transparent to our board and public, and also that we're continuing to focus on accelerating improvement where it's needed most. So that's the purpose of tonight's presentation. If we can go to slide 2, please. So overall, Charleston County School District does continue to outperform the state. In 2025, you'll note that 61.9% of our CCSD schools earned a rating of excellent or good, exceeding the state average by more than 13 percentage points. These results reflect strong work taking place across our schools. At the same time, report card ratings also help identify where additional target support is needed. Next slide. So a continuous improvement plan, which is also sometimes referred to as a SIP, is a state-required school turnaround plan for schools that are designated as underperforming. Underperforming is defined by our state as schools that receive an overall report card rating of either below average or unsatisfactory. A school's continuous improvement plan serves as a supplement to its school renewal plan, and it offers a way for us to strengthen improvement efforts through greater focus as well as greater accountability. Each plan outlines priority areas, targeted strategies, and how progress will be monitored. And importantly, our local board approval is required before our SIPs can be submitted to the South Carolina Department of Education, which is why, again, that we're bringing those to you today. So this particular slide actually outlines the number of schools that were identified and how improvement focus areas vary by the school level. They're all based on state accountability indicators that are found on the school report card. So for our elementary and middle schools, our SIPs focus on improving ELA and math proficiency as well as growth, science achievement, multilingual learner progress, as well as school climate. For our high school, the focus expands to include graduation rate and our on-track indicators, college and career readiness, such as what Ms. Huggins mentioned earlier tonight, our end-of-course assessments, multilingual learner progress, and again, school climate. These focus areas ensure that each school's SIP is strategically aligned to the outcomes for which we are held accountable by our state. The slide that you see now really provides an overview of the support and accountability that's in place. So schools identified as underperforming begin with stakeholder engagement and a data-driven needs assessment, ensuring that their turnaround strategies are truly grounded in root causes. These efforts align with each school's school renewal plan and 90-day planning process. And while all CCSD schools complete 90-day plans, our SIPs, or those continuous improvement plans, differ in that they are state mandated, turnaround focused, and require that board approval. So implementation includes prioritized high-touch district support with continuous monitoring through our data reviews, our 90-day plans, our school visits, our targeted assistance. And most of our underperforming schools already receive intensive support through Title I and/or our elevation school structures. It's also important to know that the plans submitted today reflect only the state underperforming. These plans do not include the recently released CSI or ATSI designations. For schools with dual designations, such as a school that is both underperforming and CSI or ATSI, those SIPs will actually serve as the foundation for their CSI or ATSI planning, as well as future funding. So while CSI and ATSI status has been identified, did want to make sure that you're aware that that federal funding details have not been received as of yet. We anticipate receiving this after January 30th. It typically follows the SIP submission to the state. So with board approval of these school continuous improvement plans, our district will be able to move forward with clarity, compliance, and a shared commitment to improve student outcomes. As board members, you'll have the opportunity to continue reviewing those plans and ask any questions prior to our January 26th meeting. I do want to just take a moment to thank all of our schools for working so diligently to complete this work on time. It was a pretty tight turnaround for them once they received the information from the state. So we commend them for their hard work. Also, Miss Solange Brewer, who works alongside me, and Mr. Phil Kiefer, and Mr. Darren Little, and Miss Doris Mungen, as well as all of our associates and those who sit beside me and behind me for all the work that they did to supporting this SIP process.
Ms. McKinney, we're certainly open to any questions. We appreciate the advanced questions that a lot of trustees submitted. Dr. Temple, the only one I didn't get to was yours. And Dr. Temple, Ms. Roberts asked about the number of stakeholders that differ. She wondered why the number differ for various schools in regards to stakeholder engagement as noted on the plans. I think I got back to everybody else, but except for Dr. Temple. Can you talk a little bit about, I think it has to do with principal preference and the engagement of principals at the level, but will you confirm that for me?
Yes, so our schools do work with their internal teams along with stakeholders like with their PT, or their school improvement committees. I almost said PT, but their school improvement committees to be able to work through what are the strategies and action steps that they need to take to make that turnaround. They go through several layers of processes. Our level leaders also really worked alongside our schools in making sure that those strategies were truly action-oriented for the purpose or the root causes.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts. Dr. Temple, did you hear that?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
I'm really
Just,
sorry I didn't get to it.
just encourage the schools to reach out to as many stakeholders as they can because the feedback they get, I'm sure, is incredibly useful.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. Thank you. And again, thank you for the question. With that, Ms. McKinney, we're certainly open to any additional questions folks might have.
Certainly. I think there is a lot of appreciation because there is some pain involved in this with the schools not being where they want to be. And they had to face hard facts, and they did. And they gave us marvelous information, lots of details. And I, for one, appreciate that and answering the questions that I had
Yes, ma'am.
ahead of time.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
So, well, Mr. Grabowski, we'll start at your end if there are any questions.
Yeah, and looking at this and then trying to figure out, how the district is handling this, I was wondering, have we developed, a group of 2 to 3 non-negotiable actions that is uniform against, for all these schools? There's no negotiation. It just has to be done. And if so, what are they?
But you or Dr. Clamp or I don't want.
I'll be glad to speak to a few of those. So first off, every school is expected to engage in that data analysis protocol. And so whether you're underperforming or not, all of our schools with the leadership of their associates and executive directors engage in that data analysis, which actually begins in the summer. So we didn't wait to the school renewal plan cycle to begin looking at data that we had access to. So that data protocol actually occurs more than one time a year. And it's not just for the school, it drills all the way down into the classroom level. The development of our 90-day plans, which assist in providing information to this continuous improvement plan, is now an expectation of every school. So every school develops a 90-day plan that right now is under current revision, expected to be delivered to our associates for feedback on or before January 23rd. So those are just 2 examples of non-negotiables, and those apply especially to schools in this type of a cycle where they're getting more targeted, more strategic intervention and support.
And we have general expectations, or quite frankly, specific expectations around teacher observations and how many have to be done, what kind of feedback has to be delivered, within how many days of that. We also expect that schools implement the curriculum with fidelity and follow the assessment processes outlined. Ms. Roberts, please.
And the only other thing I'll add is, with the inclusion of 90-day plans now, those plans are actually more detailed than even what you see with the school continuous improvement plans. This particular template is a state template, and so it is required that we utilize this for this purpose. But again, all these schools also have those 90-day plans that are much more involved.
And our goal, Mr. Grabowski, is and board is to make sure that all these plans really are aligned. We've transitioned to the one plan where we, try to have clear expectations and plans from schools versus 45 different plans that say different things, where it's not really clear what principals are doing or on what matters they're focused. And so we're proud that these schools have sort of fallen um, inside of those parameters.
Because I like what I'm hearing in the sense that this required exercise, is creating other plans or tools that can be used throughout the district. Because as I see it, over the last 3 years, we aren't going back. We're getting that number of unsatisfactory smaller. And I would hope in the near future that the goal would be that would be gone in the next year or two.
Absolutely.
good.
Oh, my goodness.
Us too.
It's, in fact, hope has not really worked out as a strategy for any of us. So we've put a lot of feet under that work to really meet with folks and make sure the resources are where they need to be to support kids.
Because this is a lot to read and review.
It's a lot.
I don't even perceive to have the knowledge base to sit here and question what you're doing.
We appreciate it.
Obviously, results are what we're looking for, and I'm seeing that, but obviously, we aren't there.
Still a lot of work to do, absolutely. And anyone who says publicly that we suggest we don't have a lot of work to do, they haven't attended one meeting because we say it regularly. We have a lot of work to do.
Other questions? Mr. Hollenshed?
I know you can't pull a rabbit out of the hat so fast.
We can try.
But in those urban schools, I made a quick little note. In those urban schools that continually rank low in history and biology, what is our plan to engage those schools and to pull them up to acceptable standards?
Gosh, we just looked at that data today. Dr. Epp, do you want to talk about in high schools what some strategies are that some of your principals are focused on specifically in U.S. history and biology, which are lower performing? Mr. Hollenshed, you're right, and algebra and English too.
We're looking strongly at tier one action and making sure that all the children get that grade level experience. And we are also doing targeted intervention. We're also providing flex schedule for them to use during the school day, because we find that a lot of urban schools, the biggest problem with like offering Saturday schools and also after school tutorials, they don't have the transportation. So we know we have to get those children while they're in school.
What grade level do you see most effective by that?
Well, U.S. history is normally 11th
Grade
grade.
11.
Excuse me, they take that the junior year.
Yes, ma'am.
And also biology can either be 9th grade, that's for probably students that are more advanced,
Or 10.
or 10th, or maybe even 11th.
And
In
Mr.
your
Hollenshed.
90-day plan, I didn't want to cut you off.
No,
Your
go ahead,
90-day
sir.
Plan, you will gauge that and address that issue as it needs to be tweaked, correct?
Yes, we use benchmarks, we use formative assessments, teacher-made tests, common assessments. We are working with PLCs, with the schools and their teams to make sure that they're diving down deep in the data. Thank you, Dr. Williams. He's headed that for us. But we have really, really drilled down in principals and their school leadership. Teachers, I attended a PLC in Lafayette back in December, and it was amazing what those teacher leaders and the teachers within the group were doing. They knew their kids at West Ashland. They knew exactly what weapons they use item analysis. Okay, we taught this unit. Your students did better on this particular standard. What you do different, let's talk about it. And they're really having those data conversations, and they know their students, and they're drilling down into really getting granular into the data.
Well, Mr. Hollenshed, it's a really, really good question. And I'm going to ask Dr. Epp to pass it down to Mr. Costner so he can talk about, from a CNI perspective, the support that he and his team are utilizing to make sure kids are where they need to be. But inevitably, if we're very, very honest about the matter, so many children in some of these settings arrive to high school not ready. They arrive in not school, and so if we're just brutally honest about this, kids arrive to high school and they can't read, or they're reading 4 grade levels behind, there ain't no way that they can, I mean, US history is one of the most complex as a former high school principal. The amount of content in US history is just mind-boggling. I'm not sure I could take the course and make it and pass it. And so if you get to school, if you get to Burke and you can't read, or you're reading at a 4th grade level, then there ain't no way you're going to pass that test. And so this is systemic work. So we're having to focus on the high school and do what Dr. Epp and what Jamie's about to tell you. But it's, if we're short-sighted if we don't see this as a system problem, because Cheryl and Darby, I mean, they can't fix something that has taken, 13 years, that's happened over 13 years. And again, folks in the public, we have to wrap around these schools to provide the level of support that they need to get kids where they need to be so that they can graduate ready. And that's really what we're trying to do through the system. And you'll see that in the next presentation, and Luke's going to overview for you the data. You're seeing strong longitudinal performance in elementary schools that's really maintaining, but it's taking time for the science of reading to catch up to the middle schools. And that's what Dr. Williams is focused on.
And real briefly, Ms. McKinney, and I noticed that at Morningside in my tour and talking with
Yeah.
the principal, one of the problems that they have is, again, it goes to the attendance. And it's not just the Hispanic community, it's all the way around. And so they're trying to make sure that the student at home is at least doing the homework assignment or trying to keep up. So if that student falls behind there, it trickles over into high school, which creates another problem. So that's just something we know. I learned the other day when I was taking that tour. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir. You're exactly right. Jamie, do you want to add anything in regards to biology and US history specifically?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So everything Anita and Ed just said is, US history is not a high school problem. It's an elementary and middle school problem we gotta fix. So this year, Barbara Airfield and the social studies team, they've really kind of taken ownership over K-8 social studies instruction. They built out resources, they've got lessons, so teachers really feel like they've got some quality materials to present to students as far as social studies goes. And Rodney Moore and the science team are doing the same exact thing for K-8. We really feel like we've got to build a stronger foundation in the elementary and middle grades for science and social studies. And then I'm just looking at a study here. We did a correlation analysis to see the students who are successful in biology, what are some things that we can connect that to? And the number one correlating factor was their math percentile. So if we have students who are grades below in math, we're already predicting that they're not going to do well on the biology USC exam. So it's everything they just named, but beefing up our K-8 instruction. So when they do get to 9th grade for biology or 11th grade for US history, they have a stronger foundation and can access the materials.
And that's what she's doing there. She's changing up in that particular area to try to yield the progress that she needs in that particular grade, is what she explained to me. But yeah, you hit it right on the head what she said. I heard that in her voice.
Yeah, she's
So-
exceptional when it comes to instruction. That's why we put her there.
Other questions about the continuous improvement plans? Ms. Bailey?
Yes, my question is this. The 90-day improvement plans are reviewed once or twice a year, correct?
Well, Ms. Bailey, that's a great question. They're reviewed continuously. We talked to principals about them at every fuel meeting, our countywide principals meeting in the fall and the winter. And our associates, the principals have just submitted them for revision. We just talked about them today. They were just due, some before the break. Dr. Coakley accepted hers before the break, I think, and some right after the break. So they're reviewed continuously, and principals use those 90-day plans to build these continuous improvement plans.
Okay, and I'm curious to know, what kind of incentives does the district give for schools when their 90-day plans are successful throughout the school year?
That's a great question, Ms. Bailey. So we partner actually with Meeting Street Schools, and our partners are here to offer the Excellence in Teaching Award to reading and math teachers whose students show exceptional growth. And that's inevitably part of our continuous improvement plans, is the growth of students in all of our 90-day plans. Recently, we took a look at, and Ryan Comeback did, at the number of goals based solely on student groups across this system. And it's mind-boggling, the number of goals that are based solely on the growth and achievement of Black and brown children or children in poverty and all those things. So we don't award school-based awards necessarily, but through our partnership with Meeting Street, all of our Title I reading and math teachers are eligible for incentives based on the growth of children. And again, we monitor this nearly continuously.
Okay, so do you have any schools that you've seen over the past year or so that have continuously shown growth in their 90-day plans for their students?
So yes, ma'am. Now, the 90-day plan process, as you know, has been part of our work with the acceleration schools, which are now managed by Mrs. Haynes and Mrs. Simmons. And that's when we decided to scale the 90-day plans as a district wide strategy. So we have seen schools that have met the goals on their 90-day plans, their continuous improvement plans, their strategic renewal plans, all the things. But we still got a lot of more goals to meet, Ms. Bailey.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you too.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Yes.
So I was looking at the charts and, you know, some of the schools go from average to below average.
Yes.
Between 2023, 24, 25. Some have increased, obviously, and that's great,
Yeah.
but some have gone
Absolutely.
the other direction. Are we looking at those specific schools more carefully, the ones that have gone backwards? And then also, I was going through all the different 90-day plans, and some of them aren't fully filled out, specifically some of these schools that are performing less.
So, so the answer, Ms. Jewett, to your first question is yes, ma'am. No school gets a pass, even schools that maintain their rating and or increase their points. Because if you're not leading strategically, you'll lose points next year. So no school gets a pass, and our associates know where every school is, where they were last year and where they were 2 years ago. And in some instances, where they were 5 years ago. And in regards to, is your second question about the 90-day plans y'all reviewed a while back, or these continuous improvement
The
plans?
continuous improvement
Okay,
plans.
Buffy.
Sorry.
So, I just want to make the distinction between the 90-day plans and these SIP plans. So our 90-day plans.
There are a
is
lot
when-
of plans, Ms. Jewett.
Yeah, I know, all the plans. So the 90-day plans right now is where you're going to be able to see the progress monitoring. Until these plans go into effect, because they have to be approved by you, you're not going to see that outlined in progress monitoring on this particular SIP. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Like the first 45 days of the SIP would be monitored, but it hasn't been approved by you yet. So that's why. Does that make sense? But that doesn't mean we're not progress monitoring the schools. That's already occurring.
Right, because some of them have a lot of it filled out.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Good question, Ms. Jewett.
Ms. McKinney?
Thank you. Ms. Roberson?
So, Ms. Roberts, this is my 4th January signing off on these SIPs. When we started in 2023, I had a few schools in my district, and now I only have one on here. So that's a big celebration.
Yes, ma'am.
My questions are for, I'm assuming, Dr. Williams, because one school that on this plan, I believe falls under him. So, Dr. Williams,
You got the microphone.
I'm going to do my bottom line up front first.
Need the microphone.
In looking at the plan, are the improvement strategies evidence-based? And are they aligned to the root cause analysis. And what I'm asking is because I see some things in the plan that talks about attendance, truancy. How do you know that that's the root cause of the problem?
So a lot of, I'm assuming you're talking about Baptist Hill.
But she was trying not to say the name out loud. That's okay, Dr. Wade.
Names tonight.
But we all know she represents District 8, so you good, go ahead.
A lot of times what we talk to our schools about consistently is continuous improvement. And as a part of that process, they actually have to do a root cause analysis. So they're very well versed in what that looks like. Now, one of the things that Ms. Roberts mentioned is probably really true in that when you look at these plans, these are really kind of like surface level things that they're putting in here because we want to see most of the work inside of their 90-day plans. So when you start thinking about some of the instructional strategies and things that you would like to see in the 90-day plan to help improve academics, it's a part of their 90-day plan, so.
So it's not in here. Thank you for that. Because I was going to request a meeting because when I looked at it, it was very surface level. And I was concerned because my next question was going to be, looking at this plan, how do I know that this plan would move them off of the list? So that's not what I should be looking for in this plan.
Well, that's part of.
It's a combination.
Because with this plan that they fill out for the state, the continuous improvement plan, we progress monitor it, but not as much as we would the 90-day plan. So that's why we put the meaty strategies in the 90-day plans, like Superintendent Huggins said earlier. We're actually in the process of reviewing those plans now. So if you like, I can sit down with you and show you their 90-day plan and some of the really solid things that they have in there, so you can see exactly what they're focusing on regarding scholar outcomes. Well, more specifically, the academic pieces.
Okay, because I was going to ask about the monitoring schedule. Is it quarterly? Is it semester? But that's not with this SIP, that's with the 90-day plan.
And Dr. Williams is out there a lot more than quarterly, Ms. Roberson, and Mr. Smith is meeting with us this week.
I've seen something where they have went from like 6%
Mhm.
to 32% already and meeting some of their benchmarks. So I'm not concerned, but I don't want to be overly.
Mhm.
Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
One other thing I just want to make sure that you realize as well. So when the schools actually completed these plans, they have no idea right now how, what kind of funding is going to be tied to this because we don't have that information yet from the federal government. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about what's included here and then things that we know that we're going to implement through those 90-day plans. So
It's a good point,
thought
Ms.
that might help.
Roberts. Thank you
Okay,
for
yeah.
making it.
Okay, so Dr. Williams, I would love to sit and look at some of the true and not surface level things that's in this SIP.
And just for clarity purposes, this is based off of the report already, which would be public, so that's why I was. We know we have work to do, we own the data, so we're not gonna hide from that's the honest truth. We're gonna own it and we're gonna change it, so.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Ms. Lieber, any questions? Or Dr. Temple?
I have no questions.
Thank you. Are we ready for the vote then? We are voting on the motion to advance to the January 26, 2026 board meeting for consideration to approve all proposed continuous improvement plans for the school year 2026, 2027. And we will do a voice vote. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Miss McKinney,
Yes.
I joined in and I just wanted to let you all know that I was here and that I voted aye.
Thank you. Then we will move on to item 4B, the iReady Map Mid-Year Data Review.
Thank you, Ms. McKinney. Dr. Clamp's going to overview this. Again, we're seeing some progress with our students, but again, lots of work to do, not nearly enough and not fast enough, but we're happy to see that the numbers are improving across the groups we're targeting with weighted student funding, which are our pupils in poverty, our multilingual learners, our special ed students, and across all demographic groups. So lots of great things going on, but still not significant enough. Dr. Clamp, take it away.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Tonight's Strategic Education Committee Monitoring Report will be focusing on the academic performance trends that we have now seen with our most recent winter iReady and MAP assessment procedure. And that assessment data provides us projection for both reading and math for proficiency at the end of the school year. So what you'll be seeing in the next slides that'll progress will be projections for our grades 3 through 8 for both mathematics and reading. So during the presentation tonight, we'll switch back and forth between math and reading for each of the grade levels for the demographic groups so that you can see how those might compare with one another. This really provides a clear picture for not only our performance, but how we're seeing this progress progress over time. And so the time that you're going to also see in the slides is information from fall 24 all the way through winter 26. So we really want you to be able to pay attention to how we've progressed since fall of last year to winter currently. And we're excited to present this information to you because it really helps us to define our strategic direction and the support that schools are going to receive. And you've heard many of our leaders already allude to that support tonight. On this current slide, you can see our reading projections. So the projections of the numbers of students that will be proficient or meets or exceeds an SC Ready at the end of the year. Excited to see that the progressions indicate a continuous improvement, a consistent improvement in reading, specifically when you look from fall 24 to winter 26. We see progress not only from that longitudinal time frame, but even from the short frame from the fall to the winter. Another data point that we pay close attention to is our progression from winter to winter. So winter 25, for example, with 58.4% proficient in our projections to 62.6% projected proficient in winter of 26. Reading continues to be a significant success for us in Charleston County, and that strength allows us to continue to consider how we continue to move that momentum forward. On the next slide, you'll see our mathematics projections, our mathematic projections for grades 3 through 8. While you'll see consistent improvement here as well, we're very excited knowing that our mathematics curriculum is being adopted and approved and being presented for the first time this year. So grades 3 through 8 continue to show consistent improvement. We know that the mathematics progressions are ones that we're going to continue to follow. While this modest projection is one that we're paying close attention to, we can see that growth from where we finished spring 25 at 58% to 60.3% with our projections for this current winter assessment period.
Dr. Clamp, do you mind if I interrupt just a second?
Yes.
We used to get to go back to the last slide, if you don't mind. So what's really important, I think, board, for you to understand, and what we see historically, is that nationally the trends are mid-year dips. And so, or insignificant jumps, right, Ms. Roberts? So if you look last year, fall to winter, you see a very modest gain in reading proficiency projections from fall to winter. Thankfully, that didn't go backwards because there have been many a year in this district where the fall to winter projection did go backwards. And then you see this year, fall to winter, a much more significant of I think it's 4.5 percentage points. Again, if you go to the next slide there, math, you'll see the same thing, a modest projection of increase from fall to winter. And then here you see a more significant, again, almost 4 percentage points from fall to winter, which is significant. Again, is it what we won't know? But the projected proficiency, as Dr. Clamp said, right now in winter is higher than we ended last spring. So if you are in contact with the principals that you represent, they're doing a lot of hard work because this is not typical. Dr. Clamp?
Yes, ma'am. it emphasizes steady progress, and it really exemplifies, and this reminds us that math continues to be an area that we're going to continue to focus. And you'll see in the remaining slides when we break it down by grade level, by demographic group, it's helping us to know exactly where those targeted supports need to be defined. In the next slide, we've taken the liberty to break this out by grade level and really want to celebrate the work of our elementary schools who continue to show just tremendous growth. If you look specifically at the trend in third and fourth grade from fall of 24 to now winter of 26, significant growth in projected proficiencies. And this reading projection also is a celebration of this committed work in the science of reading. We're now seeing that dividend and that return and that investment. So we're really excited to see how this third, fourth, and fifth grade group continues to progress through middle school. We see in the reading progression that our middle school students are improving over time, but we do recognize that that continues to be a focus area for us. So we take that very seriously. Dr. Williams and Dr. Knauer, our middle school team, are working very seriously on how we can continue to support students, especially in areas where they may have shown regression. But overall, you can see that this slide depicts, again, continuous improvement and acceleration of growth over time.
I just want to say something about grade 4. I would
Oh, sorry.
just take a look at that. That can be more perfect when you see how each year or each administration, that improvement has gone straight up. That's our cohort for our grade reading by grade 5, fifth graders reading on grade level. By
Vision 2027,
Yes,
that's
it's
correct.
our Vision 2027 work. That couldn't look any more perfect. I just,
No, and you see that it's taking time for that science of reading to catch up with the middle grades, which is what Dr. Williams and his struggling with now, although you see, improvements here from fall to winter, still, work to do there.
Thank you, team. If you transition now to the mathematics slide, which should be up next, our progressions here, you can also see growth over time, growth from fall to winter this specific year in almost every grade with the exception of fourth. There was a slight dip with the fourth grade fall to winter. And so what we've already diagnosed and analyzed is fractions are introduced. And Mr. Costner and his team and Dr. Aldridge and his team, we were just most recently talking about a few schools and how we're going to continue to support them. I really want to celebrate sixth grade. Notice the jump in sixth grade in mathematics from fall to winter. Significant work amongst the sixth grade students, the sixth grade team. So these progressions again show gradual improvement over time, especially in the short term, and will continue to lift both where we'll target our strategies, our professional development, and our interventions and supports. As we transition now to our WSF weighted funding formula groups, we want to show you too and celebrate the trend over time. Again, to repeat a little bit of what Ms. Roberts was sharing, look at this steady progression over time for each one of these subgroups in reading. Really a tremendous growth, both from our pupils in poverty and our students with disabilities. Want to really celebrate those groups who've made significant gains in projected proficiencies from fall to winter. These groups, as they continue to grow, this will help us to know again how we'll target those supports and what we need to do next. If you transition now to the next slide for mathematics, you'll see the mathematics progressions for our WSF student groups. Again, seeing growth from fall 24 to winter 26 in pupils in poverty and multilingual learners, as well as our students with disabilities, as well as trends of support in a positive direction from fall to winter. So as we look at these groups in our WSF, it continues, while we're also seeing that progress, it helps us to identify those strategies that we've chosen. And I want to celebrate the finance team and the support that they've given to our schools and our principals so that we can really measure that return and we can ensure that those strategies that are working become strategies that we repeat and that we replicate. The last two slides will show our demographic group. So we've paid close attention to how we're progressing, not only in closing our achievement gaps, but how our groups of students based on race and ethnicity are achieving as well. So we want to celebrate again that that success and growth over time. If you look at our Black and African American students, improving from their projected proficiency, for example, from fall to winter in reading from 35 to 38.4 and on up. This does show a moderate or a narrowing of the gap of achievement, and we know that's continual work that we have. We know that this is something ahead of our school system that is important to us and very important to our principals and our leaders as we continue to look for these trends, focusing on both where the students are in their grade levels and how we can continue to support them to improve as well. The next slide is you'll transition from reading to mathematics again. You'll see that the growth here is modest. So we're paying very close attention to what we can do to continue to intervene and provide supports, and both where we need to intervene and provide supports. But still, modest growth, both for our Black and African American students and Hispanic students, as you see their peers. We want to emphasize in both of those slides for both reading and math that we expect all student groups to grow. So we expect to close gaps and to see growth improve. And so what does this data do in terms of its provision to provide us support and information? The last slide will kind of show you in summation these trends. And so these overall trends and implications are areas that we focus both our efforts and conversations, but more specifically our efforts in aggressively progress monitoring the next 90 days. And how we'll continue to provide supports for our principals and our students. Ms. Huggins referred already tonight to meeting with some of our principals in the next coming days to really get strategic in knowing how to support their kids. So while this data reflects overall district achievement and projected proficiencies, we are going to work directly with principals in schools and drilling all the way down into the numbers. Behind every group of numbers are students' names, are students' faces, and we emphasize that with principals. Some of you have been into our buildings in their data rooms, and you can see the names of students as they progress from one grade level behind to on grade level and beyond. So in these overall trends, achievement is trending upward. In grades 3 through 8, we've seen steady progress and improvement in reading and math, and we know that our investments are affirming to see this progress moving forward, but we also know that we need to continue to progress monitor as well as provide supports and continue to produce these results. Reading continues to outperform our mathematics assessment scores for our students. And so we really want to pay close attention to the strategies that our reading teachers are using and consider how those strategies can be positioned and replicated with the instruction of mathematics. We're really excited, even within the first year of mathematics implementation, our new curriculum, however, to seeing the achievement move forward in all of those directions. Our elementary grades, we really want to celebrate our elementary teachers. They're really doing a tremendous work. And while we report grades 3 through 8, we pay very close attention to the achievement in kindergarten, first and second grade. You've also heard tonight, reference to other subjects, social studies and science. We have paid very close attention to our science scores, for example, and how they have an impact to our science progression. Maintaining this momentum K-5 is very serious to us because it is going to continue to build that foundation for our middle school learners as we continue to support them. And middle school is a key focus area for us. Dr. Williams and Dr. Knauer are very attuned to their schools, and he and his teams were working before the holiday to begin to revise their 90-day plan so that they ensure when they hit the ground running in January that they were providing support for students. We've seen student groups show gains and gaps are narrowing, but our work is unfinished. Our work is still underway, and we know that those targeted supports are areas where we'll differentiate instruction, where we'll provide different grouping and different feedback models, and really ensure that there's an equity focus and a data-driven lens to the decisions that we're going to make. We're excited about the positive momentum. We use that excitement to really continue to encourage us to work hard and continue to move forward. And in that direction, this data continues to affirm the direction that we're going, but it really challenges us to make precise and data-driven decisions for our schools and our students. So I'll pause there to see if you have any questions as we've celebrated our math and reading achievement through our iReady and MAP assessments from the winter.
Yes, sir.
Going back to slide number 4.
If you'll use your microphone, so everyone can hear you.
Going back to slide number 4, where you showed the progression in 5th to 6th grade, but noticing that 7th and 8th, it kind of tapered off. How do you explain that?
It's a multifaceted lens there, and I'll give a few comments, and then Dr. Williams may want to jump in as well. The curriculum there continues to build and scaffold, and it's challenging. And so what we know from this data is that our students are projecting proficiency growth through their elementary level, and then they transition into reading and writing at a higher level with more rigor. And so you're also transitioning in adolescent growth and development. So students are transitioning schools as well in many cases. So we know that's a factor, but we don't want to, just accept that as a limiting factor for our students. So we're paying really close attention to what happens in 6th and 7th grade reading specifically. And so the content builds, the writing responsibilities build. So Dr. Williams, I don't know if you want to add any other factors to that.
That's been a really, really heavy focus at the elementary level, and we haven't done it so much at the middle school level. So we realize that, and like she said, this cohort that we see in 4th grade that's doing exceptionally well, that's where we really started that intense focus. So that's a really good or clear explanation as to why you would see that at the middle school level, along with a lot of the things that Dr. Clem said. Does that make sense to you? Yeah, so in other words, you're going to yield the benefits from that in the future. I just noticed that because I can remember some years ago when you were at, you just came in from Morningside here, and we had this discussion some 6, 7 years ago. It seems like it's the same thing again in 7th and 8th grade, where the student loses focus or where it might be he's not up to par. So that's just why I asked that question, because I see the same trend again. And like I said, you can look at works for kids. Like for instance, if you look at 7th grade, if you look at it longitudinally, sorry, can't speak tonight, you see that we do go down. But if you look from fall to winter, you see that we did make some gains. So what we do is when we get that data at face value, we have conversations with schools about how we improve. And so while we know that across we see some dips, what's really important when I sit down with my principals is how did we go, or how did we look, or how did the data represent from fall to winter, if that makes sense to you. So you can see for both 7th and 8th grade, while it doesn't look like they grew as much for 8th grade, and we can definitely see there were some points where we were higher in 7th grade, from fall to winter, we did grow. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yep.
Ms. Jewett?
Miss Lieber's trying to get in.
Thank you. Sorry, Ms. Jewett.
No, that's okay. So kind of on that spirit, how do we compare to the national level as far as middle schools go? Is there a dip in middle schools nationally, or is this something that we see district-wide?
Ms. Roberts?
So, yes, and when we look at our state data, we have some middle schools that are performing way above where others in the state are. We have one of the highest ranking middle schools in South Carolina. When we look at national data, anytime you have a transition, that can sometimes result in some type of dip as well. That would be my just general observations.
Okay, so it's not like middle school.
No, it's really not, it's a national phenomenon, Ms. Jewett, but, in regards to these projections, we don't necessarily compare district to district on these formative assessments. It's more the state assessments. But iReady and MAP do provide the national trend data for us, and we see a dip typically from fall to winter in reading and math.
Okay. So if it is kind of more of a isolated, and it does reflect that what we have been doing with the
Science of reading
and the earlier education is working, what are we going to do to mitigate these 6th and 7th, 8th, and so on to keep them from falling below still?
So, Dr. Williams and his teams, each principal, they have plans in each school. And some of the things that Dr. Clamp talked about earlier that we're doing uniformly, Dr. Williams started in the middle schools with PLCs, for example, with, our MTSS frameworks led by Ms. Allison at the middle schools, the guaranteed and viable curriculum in the middle school. We're doing the data protocol, the instructional walks. In fact,
Jamie had something scheduled for one day this week. Dr. Williams had 2 learning walks scheduled because they couldn't collaborate. Jamie rescheduled. So it's really a group effort. It's teen kids here. So lots of different strategies, quite frankly, and it's really tailored to the specific needs of each school.
Okay. There's a requirement from the state to have a meeting with the parents to go over the assessments. And that meeting is generally held at the beginning of the year with parents.
Yes, ma'am.
We really look at the data now because now we have like a much better benchmark. We understand the students a little bit better by now.
Yes.
Here at CCSD, you know, you with the principals, why are we meeting with parents at the beginning of the school year as opposed to now midway through the school year when the teacher actually understands the student better? The assessments, we have actually 2 assessments where we can see one versus another. We can see growth or we can see decrease. Can we please look at moving these?
So our family day starts in November, Ms. Jewett, but those conferences go on year round. That's just the launch of the process. And so it really goes all year long. Only a small percentage, in fact, are held, you know, in November at the family day to day because it's just one day. But yes, and our principals really do that, especially with students that they note have fallen back and or that are having significant issues that might not have surfaced early on. But we'll reiterate that. Ms. Roberts, Dr. Clamp,
Yes,
any of our associates, if you have anything to add.
Well, sorry. Just one thing about the fall data conference, it is a way to bring families in earlier so that we can make sure that we engage them right off the bat so that we have time to continue those conversations throughout the year. So I think that was probably one of the original intents around having that in earlier fall. You also have a full year of data that you're looking at with that family the previous year and also the fall where they come in. So you're not just looking at that fall data, you're
But
actually
many teachers
sharing all
are
that.
looking at the year before. They bring in just that fall data information. Just, I mean, you'd hope that, but
You would hope, and the dashboards that we give them have multiple years worth of
Multiple
data,
years.
but that's we need to do some investigating on that.
yeah, I think especially because we look at this data so carefully. I think, and bringing parents in at the beginning, I think is really important, but I really think that they need to be brought in further
Along
in the
way.
year.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Jewett.
And we don't hide this data from our students. So they are given, and I do appreciate too, the family aspect, because that brings the wraparound support and services. So our students are shared their winner. And so they actually know both their typical growth and their stretch growth that they can have and an opportunity to set goals. So it's really neat for that to see that transpire as well.
But even the parents that are very present have very little access to their teachers by mid-year to actually assess this information.
Well, thank you for letting us know that, Ms. Jewett. And if you hear as an elected official that you have people in your area that are having trouble working with their people, please let me know.
I've actually heard this mainly from teachers telling me that they really wish that the data conference was in the spring and not in the fall.
So we'll communicate with principals that that's really at their discretion to schedule. So we'll make sure that we're going to have all staff with principals one day early next week, and I'll make sure we communicate that.
We'd be all for it. We'd have more time to do this.
We'd have a lot more because we are typically really rushing to get things done by November. So thank you, Ms. Jewett.
Thank you.
Ms. Please, Dr. Swearingen.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, I think it's great at the elementary level and at all levels to meet with the parents throughout the year. The one good thing about doing November is that's the end of the first quarter. And so with 48 elementary schools, it's nice to get the parents in. That gives the teachers an opportunity to review the first quarter, to talk about the fall. And then, moving forward, a lot of our schools will tier the schools out, the students out. We may not meet with every parent at the winter data window, but the student, perhaps principal says, we need to meet with this particular set of students or this particular set of parents. I agree with you. More frequency is, I know that's a large lift to do the data conferences for all students, but I think there are plus, I think if you were in a school maybe where the parents weren't as innately engaged, you would kind of hate to wait all the way into the spring. So I think there's benefits to doing it on the front end, although I think you make certainly a valid point, having fall and winter would be helpful. But it's also just looking at classroom assessments and especially with super young students, I think it's good for, the parents to get into the schools and meet the teachers who are spending so much time with their young students as well. But I think we can certainly discuss that. But I just wanted to throw that out there as something I think is important. As a parent, I think you want to meet your teacher and see their classroom space.
Absolutely. I just think meet the teachers and data assessment maybe aren't the same thing.
So there is one other point too. I failed to say this earlier. Our Title I schools also utilize that as a part of a sort of our Title I meeting along with the regular CCSD fall data conference. So it serves the purpose of both. So that would be another thing that we'd want to consider if we were to make any kind of move.
Dr. Temple?
Yes, couple of comments. I am seeing through the literature that I received that there's a lot more interest in middle school reading, math, because we know when we we still have high school students who are struggling with reading that more has to be done. So I think the district is tuning into it nationally. We're tuning into it, and I'll continue to send information or webinars that I think sound hopeful for middle school. And then I want to make the pitch again that the teaching of science is critical for reading and math. And when we divert from teaching science, we lose so many opportunities to engage kids in reading and the mathematics. So, there's been so much emphasis on reading that we let the science slip. And the research is really strong that science is also critical for the reading and math.
We agree wholeheartedly, Dr. Temple. In fact, today I sent an email to Amy Winstead and Emily Elliott because of the feedback we've gotten on the
PD.
professional development that they've been offering in regards to science. So know that we don't discount that at all, and we've taken a heightened focus on it, particularly as we've started this school year. So thank you for that feedback.
Ms. Lieber, any questions about this report?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Any other questions, Ms. Bailey?
I have a question about this reading projections, grades 3 to 8, the race, ethnicity, student group comparison for both reading and math. Can you pull that up?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Preston, can you handle that for me? I think it's near the end. It's the last two slides, I believe,
8 and 9.
or right before the
Right.
last one.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I am looking at this and it disturbs me. For
Us too.
for the Black and Hispanics versus the others and whites. And I'm not understanding at this date and time, in this season, in this hour, looking at these graphs, how this can be. And I want to know what we can do to help our Black and Hispanic students to rise above where they are. Because if I was a parent in school right about now, this would disturb me greatly, because I know several Hispanic families as well as Black families that would be very discouraged with this.
We are discouraged by it, Mrs. Bailey, as a system. It's, again, the issue of underperformance, particularly of black and brown children, is a national issue. And we're not pleased with it, and that's one reason we introduced WSF. A majority of our students in poverty, regrettably, are special ed, and our students who are multilingual are black and brown children. And so, first of all, we're pouring additional fiscal resources directly from the central office into schools. Secondly, our MTSS frameworks, our multi-tiered system frameworks are set up and designed to support Tier 2 and Tier 3 children, and those are children who demonstrate deficiencies in reading and math. We also designed the Elevation School Project under Ms. Simmons, who's a very successful former elementary school principal and supervisor, to really target schools where performance is increasingly low that are consist of large populations from 90% and upward of black and brown children. So ensuring that those schools have a viable curriculum, that students are continuously being assessed, are the things that we're doing, and constantly talking to principals and providing professional development to help with the low achievement of these students. We're glad in a short season that students are achieving higher than they ever have before in this district who are black and brown, and that the gap between their performance and white students particularly is more narrow than it ever has been before. But there's still a lot of work to do, Ms. Bailey. And that's why we've asked groups to partner with us outside of the system too, through local or linking opportunities to classroom and learners. Because if we could do it by ourselves, that gap wouldn't exist, and it wouldn't exist nationally. So we've asked people to come in and help us, to wrap around teachers, to wrap around schools, to help mentor students, to do whatever it takes to get children where they need to be.
Okay, well, my last question is, what can parents do? Because we can't just put all of this on the school district. What can the parents do to make this better?
So it's a really great question, because parental engagement is critical to student success. Early literacy and early engagement in educational opportunities is so critically important. And the data tells us that the single predictor of a child's literacy rate is whether there are books in the home. And so this begins early, and that's why we're going to expand universal pre-K, not universal daycare, but universal pre-K, beginning on the peninsula next year, where we see some of these historic low rates and populations of impoverished children and black and brown children and that sort of thing. So parents need to get engaged. They need to stay engaged. They need to read to their children if they can, and if they can't, we can help them with resources. They need to provide stable environments in which children live and grow and thrive, so that it helps address some of the mental health needs that some of our students experience. And overall, we just want parents to partner with us in their children's education. So, like I said at State of the Schools, this isn't good enough for us. This doesn't represent the best of Charleston County. I'm proud that we're making gains, but only for a moment, because there's a lot of work to do.
Thank you. That's the answer I was looking for.
Thank you, Ms.
ma'am.
B. Thank you.
Ms. Huggins, may I just add one more thing?
You can add whatever you like, sir. I
Attendance.
think I interrupted
Attendance.
you. Oh, attendance. Attendance matters.
Get them up and get them to school
If,
every day.
if you.
Every day. If they need help,
Yes, right.
Ms. Malone will call you,
Yeah.
but get them to school every day.
If when all else fails, kids need to be in school. And so, if they're not there, they can't learn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah. I think my question is a data integrity question, Ms. Roberts. How closely have your the iReady and MAP projections aligned with the actual South Carolina Ready report cards?
So both vendors have a predictability somewhere around 80 to 84 to 85% predictability, right? So that's actually really, really high when you consider. I can say what we typically notice in our own results, it really depends. And I'll tell you, just like I have conversations with school leaders, if your projections are too close to what your actual outcomes, my question is going to be, what have you done with the data to change that, right? Because the whole idea is that you're getting that data and you're making impactful changes with that in order to make sure that on SE Ready, you get a little bit different result, right? So we don't want to be too close.
Do we notice that if there's specific schools that's driving the gains?
So we do, when internally, we look at all of that data. Our leaders have been digging into that for since, well, in the middle of December break or Christmas break. We were already looking into the schools that were seeing some outsized gains. We've had conversations with individual schools about, what they're seeing in their data specifically, such as in student groups and that sort of thing as well.
Okay. And my last question, I guess is for Mr. Costner. I visited a partnership school last week, I believe, or week after last week. And one of the things that was noticeable to me was the engagement in the classroom. How do we coach our instructional team to work with passive learners?
Thank you very much, Ms. Roberson. One of the things that we talked about actually on Friday is our focus these first couple of months of school has been focused on questioning techniques. So Dr. Williams, he's been scheduling visits at the school, I think maybe even today at 2 schools, looking at questioning. They did an observation in the fall. Now we're going to do a follow-up on, are we improving since the beginning of the year? We see that as a driving factor in engagement. Are we asking the right questions to keep the students engaged? We had a coach on Friday say, hey, I need help with this. We're seeing this in our high school, particularly with the kids that are in 11th and 12th grade. How do we actually keep them engaged in our classes so they're not just compliant, but they're thoughtfully engaging? And engaging doesn't mean looking at text, but it's actually engaging with it and really comprehending it. So making sure we're asking the right questions, making sure we have the right resources that are relevant to students, all of those things. But I think it comes from a combination of us observing what we're seeing, providing support, and making sure we follow up to see it being implemented and as it actually improves the outcomes. And that's across our whole system. So associates lead that work, and seeing how it supports that as we can.
Okay. I guess and we have to have these uncomfortable conversations. It's known African-American students, a lot of them are passive learners. And oftentimes in the classroom, when they don't say anything, then no one says anything to them either. And so I understand that attendance is an issue, but when we get them there, we still have to engage them. And I don't want us to overlook the passive learners because that could be a root cause as well. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So to build on what Ms. Roberson brought up, because when I look at these scores and everything, especially like the ceilings, and it seems like when we look at the ethnicity and we look at the white scores, they're hovering right there at that 80%. And it's this goal to have everybody reading or accomplishing at 100% seems unachievable because we have that factor in there. And I think if you look at that white level, it seems like we've almost reached that level because you've got to take into account transit students that are coming in that weren't part of our system and aren't benefiting from all the great tools we're using from 3rd all the way up to high school coming in. You have this group of students that have educational issues. So, I always kind of cringe when I see it, and I wonder if we've hit that ceiling in the 80% room, unless you're finding something else in the data that I'm not seeing.
Well, so our goals certainly help us stay focused, Mr. Grabowski, on groups of students, all together. And quite frankly, if the system is designed to push all kids towards proficiency regardless of race. And if our white students had stopped growing 3 years ago when we started making these momentous gains, the gap would be about 10 or 15% points closer together. You see what I'm saying? So the goal is to push all students upward. And so our goal is 100%. Is it attainable? That's our goal.
That leads into my next question.
Yes, sir.
When we talk about ethnicity, let's talk about Wando. I mean, Wando has over 800 students living in poverty. That's more students than St. John's.
That's
I mean, the Sea Island schools together.
That's
Okay,
exactly.
so if we break out those numbers and see how those students of color are doing, and we see that they're achieving better than, as Ms. Roberson brings up, the passive students, that there may be a higher concentration out on the Sea Islands, it would seem that we'd be able to take whatever's working at Wando and move it out to the Sea Islands to close that gap. Because I think that's what you're going to be seeing, is the gap's going to be closing. But I really question the ceiling. You know, can we get to 85%? That'd be great. 90%, phenomenal. But there's going to be that number, that 10, 15% that's unachievable. And I just think you're leading yourself up. Every time I hear it, by 2027, everybody's going to be reading. I would rather see the gap close completely. And I'd be happy, you know, knowing that there are other factors out there, you know, that may prevent us from getting to 100%. But I would like to see the tools that may be working at Wando or some of these other schools because of the high number. I mean, it's such a phenomenal number to see if those tools can't be used throughout the district.
So that's part of the work that we're doing. But, you know, you hear a lot about this gap, you know, publicly, and folks that acknowledge that publicly don't acknowledge that Charleston is unlike most districts in the state, and that it has completely segregated schools. And there has been historical systems that have been in place that have allowed such to exist. One that was just gotten rid of by the legislative delegation less than a year ago. So these things have plagued this system for decades. And until we can fix some of those things internally and externally, they'll continue to plague the system. They plague the nation. And so there's not necessarily a silver bullet here, for lack of a better phrase, but we do have principals that collaborate and share strategies and that sort of thing. If I were to ask Dr. Epp right now to pull up a shared document we have that details all of the goals that we have across this district, there are more goals directed towards student subgroups, and I don't call them subgroups anymore, than in other places in this district, because some of our high schools are completely African American. So Coker has more goals about African American and Hispanic students at Wando, and so does Dassing at Beckham, than some of our principals have altogether, right, Ep? And so a lot of work is being done about this. It's a very challenging issue. It's a challenge for districts across the nation. Some places are doing it better than others. And we're working hard with strategies that we believe have worked at places like Wando to try to replicate them. You know, the most effective way we have to do that is hire and retain great educators who believe in the potential of all kids. And so we're hoping to continue to do that through the
I
next
think
year.
that's great, but I just think there's that perception out there, and it needs to be, you know, I don't know, better represented somehow.
Mhm.
You know, that we do have this large number, we do have this tool.
Mhm.
Yes, Charleston's very diverse,
Mhm.
but you know, we have to watch out. What is that ceiling? And second of
Mhm.
all, you know, we do have these areas like Wando, Lucy Beckham that do
Mhm.
have these high numbers. But anyway,
I think your point's valid and very well taken, and we're working hard, and we were working on it, we've been working on it a long time. It just didn't, creep up with some vocal folks and some non-vocal folks, or during an election season or not. It's been a focus of the districts for quite some time, and it'll continue to be a focus until all kids are where they need to be. It's not a slogan. It's what your goals were based on when we created them almost 5 years ago, before many of you even got in the seats you're in. The goals that were developed for this district were based on student groups and student group success. So this has been on our radar for quite some time, since I supervised high schools and served as a deputy superintendent. And quite frankly, when I was a principal in this district, I was focused on Black and brown children and their success compared to their white peers. So I'm proud of the work we're doing, and I'm proud of the work that you're helping lead and that you will help lead through the budget process. So thank you for the thoughtfulness, Mr. Grabowski.
So thank you, Dr. Clamp, and thank you, Ms. Roberts and Superintendent Huggins. We will go
Thank you, Ms.
on
Roberts.
to item 5, to audit and finance. Ms. Bailey.
Okay, we have 4 information items for 5A audit and finance review. Mr. Prentice, do you want to do a summary of this, or do you have presenters for all 4 items?
No, ma'am, just happy to do a summary and take any questions if there are any. As you mentioned, we had 4 information items, our standard items this month, in addition to 1 internal audit presentation. So the monthly capital projects report was shared for the month of November, along with the monthly financial reports for the general operating fund, for weighted student funding, and our Head Start report. We also received information from Plant Moran on the Behavior Support Services internal audit, also known as the Student Support Services Department within CCSD, for the local nomenclature there. And so we had that information shared, some questions were taken, and I'd encourage members to watch that segment of the meeting if you have any particular interest in seeing that presentation. We also have the updated list of findings that are being cleared from the internal audits that are ongoing. I'll note that during that conversation, we discussed with the committee that we're well on our way to completing the remaining FY26 internal audits from the work plan, which would get us to the 50% mark of the 4-year work plan that was approved by the board back in May of 2024. So it's our goal now to complete another risk assessment, as we've talked about previously, and bring a new 4-year plan encompassing the last 2 years of the current plan and 2 additional years to the board by the end of the fiscal year, to be able to consider the results of the internal audits completed, make adjustments to the cadence of the internal audits upcoming, and to consider additional context in the risk assessment that will be completed. So we're working on that, as well as putting out potentially an RFP again for another firm to bring in, just to mix up who's involved in that work, and to ensure that we don't have one set of eyes conducting those, as we're starting to see the recurrence of some of those areas coming back up, depending on the frequency and the critical area score that was assigned. And then lastly, we have the audit, or excuse me, the purchases over $250,000. Little volume here for the month of December. A lot of this volume is driven by our fixed cost of ownership and capital project sales tax projects. So we just had a few items on the list for the month of December, but happy to answer any questions and look forward to advancing all the action items to the board meeting on the 26th.
Thank you, sir. Is there any questions?
Mr. Prentice, the transfers, it was a total of 129.7 million in transfers. What programs or obligations make up that 129?
And can you refer to which report you're mentioning, Ms. Roberson?
It's the my classes, not the overage, the financial update. Is it that one?
Purchases over.
You're talking about the,
No, let me
number
open
4.
this. I have to go and open it. Yeah, it's the financial updates. And other expenditures,
Yes, ma'am.
total transfers, 129.7 million. You see it?
I do. Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to make sure I was looking at the correct report. So that's a number of different things. That's transfers out to other special revenue funds, as well as our transfer for all of the weighted student funding. So all of that funding goes from the GOF into another primary governmental fund for accounting purposes. So it's really a mechanism to keep weighted student funding dollars separate from the general operating fund, cost centers, and schools for accounting purposes.
You just put it under transfers. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And the, let's see, I think this is it. Purchase services right there. 124 million. What type of services is under purchase services to the total of 124 million?
Yes, ma'am. So CCSD is unique. We're one of few districts in the state that has our day porter and custodian services and bus drivers that are not CCSD employees. So all of those contracts are nested within purchase services. We actually have the lower percentage of salaries and benefits to non-salaries cost compared to most districts because of that, as most of those costs are in salaries and benefits for districts that have in-house personnel in those areas. So those are the largest categories within purchase services. It also includes like all of our managed print services and the supply accounts that are designated to schools based on their enrollment.
WSF questioning.
Yes.
Let's see there. The dollars that are encumbered. How do we ensure that those dollars are actually reaching the students and not just encumbered on spreadsheets?
So all of these dollars, and I shared with the committee, and this is a good segue into this, all of these dollars are encumbered through an approved strategy. So each principal has to submit through the workflow application that we developed a strategy tied to a SMART goal and formative and summative assessment data showing where the current state and the future state based on the implementation of that goal would be. And then they also have to put in like the employee ID if it's a personnel or the precision control number if it's a personnel allocation or the non-salaries accounts if it's a tutoring contract or something like that. After all of that's approved, then for example, if they hire somebody in that position, their salaries and benefits would be encumbered through the end of the year through payroll, or if they enter a requisition for services like for a tutoring contract, it would encumber the dollars there, but they can only enter something tied to an approved strategy because the funds start in a restricted allocation account, and then they are transferred from that account throughout the course of the year as strategies are approved to the proper object code. And I told the committee during the meeting that November was what we call a adjustment window, if you will. So we have 3 published adjustment windows throughout the year. So for example, if a school hired somebody and that person left the position and the position's vacant, unlike the general operating fund, they could take the dollars remaining on that position and transfer it for another purpose throughout the year. And we have those windows set up for them to be able to do that, to be able to cascade strategies and keep working on things that are going to be best for their school. It's not like you just lose all the dollars associated with that position or have to post that same position, since we know, of course, that it's hard to hire people in these roles during the course of the year.
Okay. Anyone else? Ms. Jewett?
So for capital projects, the D3 bus lot is only 22% complete. What exactly is that and what's the plan for that?
Project is underway. There's been 10 years of design and location problems, so that's why that one's taken so long. So the project's underway right now.
What does this project entail?
It involves creating a bus lot that will house the buses that are currently parked at James Allen Charter, as well as some of the buses that are parked at St. John's High School.
That long?
There have been problems out there for quite some time. They actually go back maybe to your
They go
first
back before-
vet on the board. There's
There's a
been
property issue, yes, sir.
Yeah, yes, sir.
We couldn't
Yes.
find a place to put it.
And a lot of community engagement a decade ago. Yes, sir.
My first meeting in the district.
He
Not
remembers
kidding.
it well.
Not kidding.
Glad I asked.
No worries. You may ask me anything you want.
Please don't name it after me.
That's the end.
In financial
Motion.
update, sorry, my notes from the meeting. There still isn't any federal money from last year. Are we just anticipating not receiving it?
Are you referring to the 115,000?
Yeah.
So that predominantly is our impact aid revenue, which is for students that are attending CCSD that live on the military base. And so that application deadline is the beginning of next month. We'll submit that application and then receive that reimbursement from the federal government all at once. So that's predominantly the only revenue that we receive in the general operating fund from federal sources. All other federal revenue like IDEA and Title I is posted in those special revenue funds.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. In WSF, Baptist Hill hasn't spent any money.
Let me get to that one real
Is
quick.
that
So Baptist Hill High has expended $111,468, and Baptist Hill Middle has expended $24,376.
okay?
I'm looking on the 13th page of the report. And then if you look at what's available, Baptist Hill High has about $2,000 after encumbrances, and Baptist Hill Middle has about $149,000, and that may be the timing of the entry of purchase orders or requisitions to convert to purchase orders for non-salary type programs.
Okay, because that's the big gap, I guess. I mean,
I'd be happy to look at the specifics and follow up.
yeah.
Just off the top of my head, I couldn't say specifically what
What's
might be
going on?
driving the unencumbered balance that's there on the middle school side, but we can get that information for follow-up.
Yeah, Dr. Williams might know. I don't, Dr. Epp, do you know about the high school side, the difference between encumbrances and what they've spent, what's left at Baptist Hill High School? Or do we need to investigate?
The high school it only has $2,000 left. It's the middle school that we need to ask the question about.
We'll let Dr. Williams know when he gets back in, Ms. Jewett.
Okay. And then Carrio has already spent over its budget.
Let me get a carrier real quick. So I mentioned this in last month's report, and we did a lot of cleanup this month with the window that opened in terms of people shifting strategies. So these variances that are here that are negative variances over budget, we've isolated these down to predominantly being benefits related encumbrances. So for example, if we hired a position and then somebody in open enrollment switched from in individual health coverage to full family health coverage, it could drive an increase in the encumbrance throughout the year. And we have a small contingency set aside where we're reconciling and adjusting those things throughout the year. We just didn't want to over allocate, to schools because those things can happen kind of fluidly throughout the year.
That was going to be my question.
Yeah.
Where does the overage come from? Okay. God, I can't read my handwriting. The over budget, I think it's a document. Where does this get accounted for in the balance sheet?
So this is all of our cost centers and objects. This is something that was in the board approved budget resolution that we did this year for transparency purposes to show where accounts are over budget. This only gets presented to the board if the account is over budget after a period of 30 days elapse. So frankly, as a result of doing this, this number is the lowest that it's ever been because we're helping keep all cost centers accountable for making these adjustments. And it's not that their aggregate of their cost center is over budget. It may just be that they have to make a transfer from another account. Sometimes it's a P card purchase. Talked about last month, for example, there are encumbrances that are made, and sometimes people will make a purchase on a P card, and then we have to manually reduce that encumbrance. So it encourages them to work with either procurement or their budget supervisor to make those adjustments every month. So I believe this amount actually has decreased a little bit since last month's report, and I will absolutely share with the board if there's a budget variance that needs to be addressed in some larger fashion. But even to the question that Ms. Roberson asked earlier, our projections for last fiscal year and this fiscal year, like with substitute cost, take into consideration savings where we have salary savings as a result of either vacancies or average salaries that have a delta that's favorable to us to be able to address those substitute costs as we trend them throughout the year.
Okay. And then I guess I wanted to follow up on the audit findings and go back to the IEP 504. it seems like the only ones left in yellow seem to be related to things like IEPs. You know, I've heard from a lot of the constituents in my district, their grievances with the process to fulfill the IEP requirements in order to be able to get their child to get the assistance they need, or 504s.
So Ms. Jewett,
IEP.
really IDEA regulates that. There are a lot
I
of.
know, I was
parents-
wondering why they're associated with the audit and finances, I guess,
Okay,
why?
okay.
So
Daniel, you
the
were-
internal audit plan has special education, student support services, all of those areas as areas to be reviewed through the internal audit process. So it's just a centralized process for conducting the audits and then reporting out the findings and working with the leaders in each area to correct those deficiencies.
Okay,
Yeah.
but this isn't directly related to the process.
This is not, this is not intended to be a, solely a fiscal process. This looks at standard operating procedures, compliance
FOP,
to
yeah.
statute,
Yeah.
and federal, code of federal regulations and some of those other areas of consideration of risk based on that risk assessment that was done several years ago that I mentioned that drove the plan.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And this allows us, Mrs. Jewett, to, that process is more regulated by IDEA, but these findings help us tighten up our standard operating procedures, our systems in certain places. And so we acknowledge them very publicly. I know Ms. Simmons and Dr. Clamp, Ms. Bell have met Ms. Allison. I think those were in the latest waves of audit, and we've already done corrective measures to get things where they need to be.
And we're continuing corrective measures.
Yes, ma'am.
I've gotten a lot of constituent feedback that,
Yes, ma'am.
they've communicated with the schools and they didn't get return calls, and
Yes, ma'am.
they didn't get the IEP until after the kid tested,
Mm.
and things that I don't necessarily bring to you always
Mhm.
because there's a lot.
Sure.
But if I'm hearing it from all angles, I think it's
Sure.
something that I know in my district is a concern.
Yes, ma'am. So you are welcome to forward all those things to us. That's my job, and we will be very responsive to parents if they have concerns about that. I think the findings that Daniel reviewed with audit and finance and now with y'all have more to do with documentation and that sort of thing, not necessarily about parents who have expressed concerns and not necessarily received the feedback that they wanted or feedback at all. So again, please, you send it on and we'll deal with it.
Many
Okay.
are phone calls or conversations.
Well,
It's hard
sure.
to.
Well, and
but-
the parents, you can put them in touch with me and we can put them in touch with Ms. Simmons and Ms. Bell if they're good with that. And, there's a way the system works, but certainly I report to you. So if you let me know the concern, we'll deal with it.
Thank you.
Please, thank you.
Any other
Thank you for your
questions?
questions.
Any other questions from Mr. Prentice?
All right, Ms. McKinney, I have a question not relating to the report, but an audit and finance question.
Would you mind emailing it then, since it doesn't have to do with the report?
It has to do with the report.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
We received an email for the sole source and emergency procurement mid-year report. This normally goes through audit and finance committee, then comes to us. This time it came through in an email.
Yes, ma'am. So the policy in the state procurement code dictates that the annual report comes to the board through the audit and finance committee, but the 6-month report, the policy only requires us to report to the superintendent. And I know the superintendent just shared that in transparency to show where we were, but the requirement, like the one we shared back in August, was the full fiscal year.
Okay.
And the one this time was just for the first 6 months of FY
So in
'26.
August, we will get a full report.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
Mhm.
you.
All right. We will move on to item 6 of the agenda, policies. Mr. Grabowski.
Thank you, Ms. McKinney. First item up is item A, and I'd like to make a motion to advance to the January 26, 2026 board meeting for consideration to approve revisions to policy GBEDBD, acceptable use of technology, IJNBD, technology acceptable use, and IJKA, technology resource selection, and adoption to include generative artificial intelligence for a second reading. Do I have a second?
Second.
I guess we'll open it up for discussion. As I let all my fellow board members know in the email following the liaison meeting, and I'll let staff describe this more, but we approved language for this policy, then there were a lot of concerns raised, and since then, staff sources taken into account some of the concerns raised. And so what's being presented tonight is those concerns and the amendment to the language, and so that it would have to move on. So that's what you're seeing. So we have the original language, which is approved, and then at the board meeting, the next board meeting, we would have to approve either the original language or the amendment of that's being presented by staff, which took into account the discussions at the last board meeting. So with that, if staff has anything more to say, we'll open it up for discussion. Wow, I can't believe I accurately said it. Are there any questions of staff as to how they, what they're recommending and what the changes were? I do, most of it was focused on trying to strengthen because what we're looking at is this policy is the district operating as an operator. At some point, as we dig deeper into this and as we get our policies together, we'll be looking at the end users, which will be the students. But also you have the potential of the teachers being end users. But right now, we're just focusing in on how to get a handle. And it's amazing because at the legislative affair last week, I was talking to a lot of legislators as to what they were doing with AI. And they just looked at me. Well, they just looked at me. But with that being said, are there any questions with staff?
Motion's been made in the second and call for the vote.
He handles this part of the meeting.
Motion's been made in second and call for the vote.
Are there any questions or
Mr.
Roberson?
Mr. Grabowski?
Who is it?
I think that's Ms. Watley, Mr. Grabowski.
Ms. Watley?
I've spent the Cognia conference, specifically learning about AI and what's going on in education nationwide with the use of AI. So hopefully when I get back, I'll have a pretty comprehensive report for you, and specifically as to how it relates to policy. I'll share that with you in the next couple of days.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Ms. Roberson?
The part of,
Can you use your mic so I can?
Sure. Line 57, starting from 57, 61, 63, and 66. It says the district will.
Of which policy are you referring?
The
'Cause-
AI?
Well, he
Oh, which one
mentioned
are you doing?
4.
Yeah, there's GB, this motion covers GBE, BD, and LIN, DB, and IJKA. There will be a second policy that we'll talk about on item B. So it's which policy you're looking at?
I'm sorry, you on A?
Yeah, we're on A.
Okay, never mind. I don't have anything.
Yeah. Hearing no further questions, I'll bring the motion up for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, the policies are moved on to the general meeting for the second reading. On to item B, which is the new policy XXX, and that's the AI literacy and acceptable use of generative artificial intelligence. I'd like to make a motion to advance to the January 26, 2026 board meeting for consideration to approve policy XXX, AI literacy and acceptable use of generative artificial intelligence for a second reading.
I'll move it.
Okay, I'll open up for discussions. Ms. Roberson?
Thank you. can we look at the academic integrity guidelines, line 57, 61, 63, and 66? Can you explain the rationale behind using the terminology will? It seems like it's just committing, saying what the district will do versus actually what's going to happen and what will be in the policy. So
the policy, by using the word will, the policy directs the system to create these specifically on the academic integrity side, specifically to create those protocols and guidance. So we don't get a choice to do that. We're going to do that.
yes, but when?
As soon as the policy's approved, then we're gonna, the AI task force and our external partner, we're gonna work collaboratively to create these guidelines and protocols and really use a smart planning process to do so, so that when we begin to apply and implement them through the professional development, we'll be ready to go.
Okay, so then once those controls are done, then you go back and take out the word will in this part?
No, ma'am, that defines and tells us to be able, it tells us to do that.
Right, and when you do it, then does this
Yeah.
like go away?
I think we would, I mean, there are other policies that are like that, that have a directive to staff to create an internal protocol, and it remains in the policy with that
It
wording.
continues to read the district will.
Yes, ma'am, I believe it does.
And so where will we find the will?
Where will the protocols
Yes.
rest? So those would be internal protocols that would not be board policy or administrative rule. Those would be internal CCSD documents.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yes, and where will we find those?
We're going to create those and they'll become part of standard operating procedures that we'll use in
Okay.
employee orientations and execution for school-based leaders to ensure that employees currently here and new employees all get this information annually.
And I'll be sure we share those, Mrs. Roberson and trustees, just like that report earlier, Mr. Prentice referenced, in the spirit of transparency. As we create those things, we'll share them with you.
And the same thing applies to line 48 and 52 when we use the terminology commits.
Yes, ma'am,
Okay.
I would think so.
Okay, all
But
right.
those are directives from the board to the staff to make sure that those things happen.
Okay, got it.
Any other questions, Ms. Hewitt?
Well, I guess following up with that, my only concern is then once these frameworks are built and guidances are built, then the board no longer has any sort of connection to making sure that it's something that we really feel the constituents all would want within the framework. I mean, the reason that there's policy is so that we represent the constituents in saying this should be this way in order for us as a whole. So once the framework is developed and we have no say in it, then we basically take the constituents and the rest of us out of the equation.
I certainly understand what you're arguing there. I think that really
Not
once you have that language in there that says will and commits to and that sort of thing, the staff is required to abide by your wishes. And if there's something that's in the protocols or the procedures that isn't what the board has intended, or as it unfolds and it grows, if it's something that doesn't comply with what you all would like, then you would direct us back to say, look, you have this language in here
Should
that
we
we're
have
committed to
language in
this.
there that supports that?
No, ma'am. We shouldn't. So the policy provides the governance oversight and the structure for the staff. And then my job is to execute, and we do that. And Mr. Grabowski, I think, has given input on behalf of the board for AI. And then what I'll do is I'll share the process and the protocols, the admin, if admin rules are established or as such, I'll be glad to share the standard operating procedures with you all. But your governance framework is really to make sure the policy gives the general broad expectations for us as the staff to develop systems that are prudent and ethical and serve kids well and fiscally responsible. But we're very open, as you know, as a staff, to getting your feedback and to adjusting as we can. The most recent example being in the foundation articles that, you know, we've adjusted. And so we're open to your feedback, but I don't think I would suggest putting that sort of language in policy because it sort of stretches beyond the realm of governance, if that makes sense. Mrs. Thompson?
I would agree. And certainly the AI protocols in particular will be such living, breathing, you know, movable targets at the beginning.
Right.
I think that the staff needs to have some leeway in working with that.
There'll be some things we establish, Ms. Jewett, that may or may not work. As Mrs. Watley maybe said, or somebody said earlier, Mr. Grabowski it was, this is so new that
Right.
we're gonna
I guess my
get some things
concern is
right, not others.
Right. My concern is that then it kind of pushes off and then there isn't necessarily the accountability that we would need. Because it is an uncharted territory, you know, no one knows what the future, and this isn't for me as a board member.
Sure,
This is
sure, I
for
understand.
the 15 years from now board member and the staff 15 years from now.
Sure.
You know, it's not necessarily a today
Issue,
question.
right. I understand. I would still suggest though that you all work with us back and forth with the procedures and we'll be very transparent and you can provide us feedback, but much like goals, the policy is designed to be to be broad, but yet provide us the guidance that we need to develop the parameters. But the day-to-day really is for us to sort of establish, test, and report back to you on, and then you hold us
It's
accountable.
just the reporting back to that I'm seeing isn't here.
Okay.
It's not I don't want to be a part of.
The everyday, good for you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure some of us do either, but well, yes, ma'am. I don't, Prentice, do you have something you want to say?
I was just say, I mean, the annual policy review process, you know, that there would never be an elapsed period of time where a policy stagnated.
You guys are a great staff and are doing the annual review process.
Well, but your policy also dictates that. So it, you know, that would, if we didn't bring it, it's incumbent upon staff at the board's direction to bring it back. And, you know, similarly, even if there's not, you know, if we go through a year and there haven't been a lot of changes, you know, to the overall, environment of AI, which I doubt will be the case. You know, we need to make sure we keep the policies fresh and modern. So if there's something that changes and all of a sudden, you know, there becomes a, you know, a secondary layer to a deep fake that we don't even know about right now, you know, we would need to bring that back and address it. And, you know, in the policy meeting, we were talking about, you know, some facets of like agentic AI, where AI can, you know, get involved in process control. And if that evolves to the point that it becomes, you know, academically, you know, relevant to be governed by policy, we need to bring that back and, you know, let the board discuss it and figure out how we want to harness those elements. But I think it's going to be a very, you know, living, breathing thing. And I would imagine within a year or, you know, at the year mark, we'll be back discussing this and also reporting out through strategic education how AI is being implemented in professional development and superintendent's reports and things like that.
In fact, Ms. Jewett, you know, as part of our commitment, just like we've committed to being very transparent about the work with the constituent board and Dr. Coakley's work with hearing officers, we will put this, Dr. Clamp, on our strategic education work with Mrs. Lieber and make sure that we revisit it within 3 months so that you know where we are. If there are no updates, I can provide that in a board update. But if there are, we will certainly bring it back to this body and for the public. So Dr. Clamp, that's April.
It's already a standing item on our strategic
It
education.
is, thanks to Ms.
We haven't
Lieber.
approved the policy yet.
Ms. Lieber, she's taken a keen interest in AI, but in February, March, April. So let's tag that for April, Dr. Clamp. I'll put it on my calendar right now.
And it's also the reason that we're so proud of the diverse AI task force that we've created that has parents and students and community members and teachers and principals to help inform what we're doing next. And as soon as the policies are approved by the board, that's our next step. And our external partner has allowed us to really be provided with some engaged national research and information that's going to help inform that as well.
How do you become a part of this AI task force that you mentioned?
We actually had some self-selection. We had some, obviously some student recommendations, but we did our best to create a group that had representation of all of our geographic areas.
And I think what we're struggling with, and it's, as I see it, once I go back to my initial statement, this is the operator, and we're the operator. So it's like the district saying suddenly, hey, we have to have a curriculum. We don't put the whole curriculum in the policy. What we do is we put in the framework so that the district can put in or create the curriculum. So when we get down to that user level, where we're talking about students, teachers, Mr. Prentice, and a couple of these other people that will be using AI, I think that's a whole different level of discussion and reporting to the board. But right now, what we're asking for in this is to get the operators data so we can start developing a lot of these other policies, which would fall underneath the, board's oversight. But we need to start something like, if you just considered a curriculum, where you would go with the curriculum.
But a curriculum then has accountability to go with it.
Right, but if you look at our board policies and the way the policy is set up on curriculum.
This one doesn't. Anyway, it's fine.
We'll bring it back.
Well, Ms. Jewett brings up a good point. I mean, it is true. Our curriculums do have oversight, statements within it.
Textbooks
Right.
have oversight.
Textbook, true.
So I've got it on my
Which I think at
calendar.
some point, once we know what needs to be oversight, I don't see why it's not a problem of bringing it back in, but I don't think we're at that point yet.
We still will.
Right.
We still will. It's on my calendar for Monday, April the 13th.
Right.
Yeah, I promise to update you.
I mean, this is. I attended
It's
a
hard
conference
work.
yesterday on this, and they basically said that they weren't going to have a follow-up conference because, and they aren't going to print anything because everything was changing, and like next week anyway.
It changes
Yeah.
before.
Mr. Holling said, do you have any questions?
Call for the vote.
Good point. I would like to call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we're done.
Thank you, Mr.
Please-
Grabowski.
Policy.
Excuse me, Miss Trudy, I didn't get a chance I was fighting with mute, but aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Report.
We will move on to item 7, other business, the naming of facilities. Is there a motion to advance to the January 26th, 2026 board meeting for consideration of the naming committee's recommendation for the early college high school conference room to be named the Wilmot J. Frazier Conference Room?
I so move.
Moved by Ms. Bailey. Dr. Temple, would you like to second?
Yes.
Ms. Denny?
Yes, ma'am. So the early college high school community to honor Frazier, who was a dedicated African-American educator and pillar of the East Side community. As many of you know, Wilmot Frazier Frazier Elementary School was named after Wilmot Frazier, and campus still retains his name. So the conference room is at the entrance to the new early college high school facility, and we think that it would be a phenomenal way to recognize Wilmot J. Frazier on the campus.
Fantastic, Miss Denny. Thank you.
Any questions from the report or Ms. Denny?
I just have a quick question. So it's called Early College and Wilmot Frazier Campus.
College high school, Wilmot J. Frazier.
But the naming is for the conference room, not the campus.
Yes, ma'am. So where the currently sits, it was Frazier Elementary School. And so the campus retains Wilmot J. Frazier's name, and we also like to add the name of the conference room within the new school.
Yes.
Any other questions? Then we'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then the motion passes unanimously. On to item 7B, potential agenda items. I believe each of the items listed as potential consent agendas items were unanimous votes, so they will go on the consent agenda. We will move on to item 8, public comments, and we have one public comment, Dr. Char Fitzwater.
Hi, I'm Dr. Shara Fitzwater, and I am sorry to stand between you and the end of the meeting. I'll be quick. Most of the questions I had regarding continuous improvement plans were answered, and I'm grateful for that. I did have one. I believe that the charter schools that are high schools have to be reviewed, and I looked at Greg Mathis' charter. I didn't see any report in there. Wondered if the district's responsible for that or if that moves beyond you. Then the other comment that I have is related to the internal audit results on the behavior support services, which I was grateful to hear all of the ways that you're addressing the priority concerns and the fact that it got caught in the midst of a transition of data. I want to point out that in the future, you may want to consider internal audits can include assessment of the effectiveness. It's not like an audit for the finances. And I would encourage you to include, like we did in business, customer satisfaction among the things that you include in your audits in the future. Those are all my comments, and thank you for all you do.
Ms. Huggins?
The SIP's in there. Greg Math.
Go ahead, Dr. Clamp. Go ahead, Dr. Fitzwater, Dr. Clamp.
I just looked in the folder. The SIP for Greg Mathis charter is present. I'm looking at I just pulled up their goal 1 strategy here, so it's present. Maybe just.
I'll have to look again.
Yes,
I
I
looked
can-
at it earlier today.
I can show you right after. That's okay.
Sorry.
And we've also requested a separate plan, and we'll be meeting with Greg Mathis Charter School later this month. Ms. Roberts, do you have anything else to add to that? You got it? And then we'll pass along to Dr. Clamp your Mr. Prentice, it's getting late. Your recommendation around the audit and audit processes. I know they were primarily done for financial purposes, and we gather some continuous improvement feedback via other data we collect, but we'll certainly pass it along and have them reach out to you separately. Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am. Ms. McKinney, if I may also, for Trustee Jewett, in regards to Baptist Hill Middle, the reason that money is encumbered is Principal Smith is amending his plan. He was not able to fill a vacancy that he had allocated funding for, and will be reallocating that money to tutored by teachers to work directly with students. So that's the reason for the funds. You asked that question earlier. We were able to get that before now. And we do have an ethical principles poster that if you could stick behind and everybody sign before you leave from the South Carolina School Board Association, we'd be grateful. Thank you.
Ms. Huggins, I have a question.
Sure.
If I'm allowed to ask. I believe the MOU for the charter school is coming up at the board meeting. I tried to access it from the audit and finance agenda, and it did not allow me access. So
Mr. Prentice, the MOU for the public-private partnership with Meeting Street Schools will be up. Is that accessible? I thought it was accept the MOU.
It should be available under the member content.
Have to log in.
We have to log into board.
yeah, it showed me that denied access.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you could just send me a PDF.
Sure.
So we found that at Audit and Finance, if you're not logged into your account with Diligent, it won't give you access, particularly Audit and Finance. So, but we can make sure the board has access to that if there are any questions or concerns about it.
Moving on to item 9, closing items, upcoming meetings, January 26th Board, February 4th Audit and Finance, February 9th Committee of the Whole, February 23rd Board meeting. Is there a motion for adjournment of the meeting? So moved. All those in favor, rise.